message is being broadcast by the Department of Defense of the Republic. At 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, multiple unidentified objects were confirmed to have entered Earth's atmosphere.
Discovery Houston, 20 seconds to LOS T-drift.
Contact, nice, you're in orbit. The first message that comes to you is you are a divine being. You matter. You count. You come from the realms of unimaginable power and light, and you will return to those realms.
The vast stretches of the unknown and the unanswered and the unfinished still far outstrip our collective comprehension.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting from Forest Tower Studios, all the way from the Deep South. Now, here is your host, Joe Rogan.
Broadcasting from atop a hill in the mossy creek bottoms of Cane Creek, Arkansas. This is Lighting the Void, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's Friday night, June the 21st, on into the 22nd. Tonight, it's open lines. Anything goes. We don't really care about much tonight. I mean, as far as, you know, we kind of like to let our hair down just a little bit, so we're going to talk about all kinds of stuff. Let it all hang out, but obviously... But we'll bring up some stuff that we talked about this week, as well as your experiences and stories, opinions, and etc. And I want to tell everybody, etc. I want to tell everybody, happy summer solstice from Lighting the Void. This is the longest day of the summer, and it's already almost over. But during this time, during the summer, there's hundreds of people that go out, what we call modern-day druids, that watch the sunrise over Stonehenge as they celebrate the solstice, and thousands of people greet the sun with happy joy stuff today. So there's a lot of different celebrations going on, especially if you're of pagan origin. But it's been a cool day, so it's been kind of hot here. But yeah, so you know we're going to talk about the Joe Rogan. We're going to talk about the Joe Rogan thing tonight, where Bob Lazar was just on the show. I woke up and that's what everybody was talking about today. Tonight, my guest host is John Brisson on this Friday night from Fix Your Gut at fixyourgut.com. I believe that's the website, John. I hope I didn't get it wrong. It's been a minute since I talked to you, brother. It's good to have you back on the show.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you for having me back on Lighting the Void. And you're right. It is John at fixyourgut.com. I'm also doing conspiracy research now. I got a conspiracy research YouTube, but we've read the documents on YouTube as well. Been going into the CMP, brother, as you well known about them and the work of Josh Reeves and everything. I've been going on them hard. So, but yeah, Bob Lazar, that sure was something, wasn't it? Yeah.
And, you know, just to let everybody know, John is my conspiracy guy that I go to because he keeps up with all that stuff. I don't keep up with the conspiracy stuff too much, but I've been getting involved with it. But if I got a question, I'll hit him up on Discord and ask him, hey, what's up with this? What's up with that? Real quick, before we get into the show, I just want to give a quick few shout outs to Get the Tea. Make sure you go grab the best tea and cleansing stuff on the planet, or at least the best tea. And this show is also brought to you by Ancient Life Oil at ancientlifeoil.com. There is no other choice for CBD oil. I know you think you got a million choices, but you want the real deal. And preparewiththefringe.com. And also go check out UFO Seekers. I'd be glad. I need to talk to Tim too. I want to see what Tim Doyle from UFO Seekers thinks about it. I know he did make a few comments today on Twitter, and we'll talk about that as well. But what did you think about it, man? I'm kind of glad, John, that Rogan had him on the show, that they talked about it. I thought that Joe was going to like roll his eyes like he usually does, but he's actually keeping up with this case. But here's the thing. You don't believe in none of that. You think Rogan is a shill, right? Like he might be trying to spread this story for CIA purposes or something like that.
Very much so. I mean, through the work of Matthew North and Jesse Spots and even Josh Reeves, it's come to my conclusion that Joe Rogan definitely does have connections, government connections, possible U.S. SOCOM connections, tip of the spear, connections to the CIA, especially, from him being a comedian and working through the Comedy Store and stuff like that. And comedians' long way of getting out, dropping knowledge, and with humor, some being for Operation Mockingbird and some for the CIA and others, just being genuine in their humor. But yeah, as far as is Rogan, just look exactly like you said. You thought Bob Lazar was going to go on, and you thought that he was going to be harsh on him.
Yeah, he usually goes on there and just anytime somebody brings up UFOs or anything, he does the eye roll, right, where he just doesn't talk about it or says it's ridiculous. But this one, he seemed almost as if, at first he seemed like he was on the fence, like he was really grilling him with the questions. In fact, he never let Bob Lazar finish one question before he started hitting him with another one right at the first. He was really putting the sticks to him, it seemed like. But towards the end, you could tell that he kind of believed the story and that he was wanting to, spread it. Obviously, if you come on his show, it's going to spread like wildfire anyways.
Yeah, Joe. And an interesting thing about Bob Lazar is I remember Joe Rogan had Tom DeLonge on, which was Into the Stars Academy. And I think if I remember correctly, when Tom DeLonge was on Joe Rogan, he was talking about Bob Lazar to Rogan at the time and talking about how, his information from, Area 51 and George Knapp, who later, became part of Coast to Coast AM much, much later. But yeah, it's interesting how Joe already knew about Bob Lazar back then from when Tom DeLonge talked to him, when Tom DeLonge was on the Joe Rogan Experience. I think it was somewhere in the 1300s. I don't remember exactly what episode it was. And, Joe is skeptical of Lazar now, then, and then now he has him on. And all of a sudden, like you said, instead of taking like this, I don't believe it, skeptical type angle, instead he's like, no, he believes it at this end, kind of like this soft disclosure that's going on right now, that many people within the UFO research field have their own differing opinions. Especially if we're going to talk about, who was it that just passed away? Who thought Stanton Friedman? Yeah. Who passed away in May. He had his own questions about Bob Lazar, about how he couldn't, back up his claims that Lazar attended MIT and said that he attended in some junior college, I don't remember which one, in Los Angeles at the time. Instead, so he could not have been in MIT. So there's many people, like when you look into Bob Lazar, there's a few things that you can back up, same thing that Josh Reeves said about him today. There's a few things that you can back up in his story that do seem sound and plausible, but it could just be that he knows about this stuff because he probably has a high IQ. Or another way of looking at it is that Bob Lazar in of himself, the reason why his work history has disappeared, the reason why his educational history has disappeared is because he's an agent for the CIA. And of course that stuff would go away as well, so that's another plausible explanation for it too, Joe.
Yeah, I just, a lot of this to me is, I'm on the fence about a lot of things because a lot of this to me is like speculation, just to be honest with you. The fact that he's a CIA agent or he's a shill, there are certain things that kind of point to that. There's been a few things that have pointed to that, and I'm talking about Rogan specifically. But I think sometimes we don't really understand how intelligence works. Like we all think we understand the CIA and all these intelligent departments and what they do and all their methods, and I don't really think that we do. I mean, these guys could. We read about stuff they've done in the past, but we don't know what they're doing now. They could definitely be talking about, like Joe Rogan could be talking about this with Bob Lazar, and both of them could be under the CIA's ripple effect that they're not even aware of, if that makes any sense. You know what I'm saying? Like, when you say the word shill, to me, a lot of people think a shill is somebody that talks with the CIA specifically and works with them on a day-to-day basis and has their contact information and stuff like that. But you could be doing the CIA's work just because they stirred up enough stuff because they knew you would talk about it.
Well, I mean, Joe Rogan has I think he has the most listened to podcasts in the world, correct?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. As far as talk shows go, yeah, I think so.
So if that's the case, then he's got to be getting it from somewhere. I mean, they wouldn't allow that through all the censorship that's going on, Joe, that you're well aware of, that everybody's talking about. And there might actually probably, there's some indications Milo Yiannopoulos said they're going to go after Joe next as far as trying to censor him of stuff that he's said in the past. But just look at the way, Joe's had many people, Terrence McKenna. He's had many different people with the whole DMT cult that Alex Jones, one of the few things Alex Jones actually said that was truthful, that surrounds himself around Joe Rogan, and the MAPS.org Institute as well. And the people are associated with MAPS, which isn't really too far from me. It's just interesting when you look at Rogan's connections. He's well connected to people in many different levels, whether it's Hollywood, which makes sense because he's a comedian, whether it's government officials, whether it's academics, whether it's all these different pop culture references, like people. You could just say because of his status of his podcast, but I think it's a little bit more than that. And I think they dictate who he has on his show and who he pushes. To me, at least, anyway, it seems like that is the case. He seems to be somewhat friendly with who's the guy who he had on? Jack Dorsey. He seems to be somewhat friendly with Jack Dorsey, and Jack Dorsey, I think, running Stripe, and Jack Dorsey may be funding, allegedly, Joe Rogan to some degree, and that's why he didn't go after him hard the first time and got a lot of backlash for that, and later had to bring Tim Pool on to go hard on him. So I don't know. I don't think they would allow Joe, if he wasn't connected, to be as big as he is. You know what I mean? I mean, to me, it just doesn't seem like that's possible. I could be wrong, but it just seems to me likely that as large as he is, he didn't get there without. Now, was he always compromised? I don't know.
Well, let me ask you this just first, because I think we jumped the gun here. Do you believe in the Bob Lazar story? Do you think it happened? Do you think he's telling the truth at all?
I don't know if it happened. I do believe that whether or not it happened or not, he believes the story he's telling is true.
Yeah, so the weird thing, there was a couple of weird moments when I was watching how he would kind of lock up a little bit. Because right when Joe was, really hitting him with the questions really hard, he would lock up and, I got a migraine and I forgot where I was at. And I could understand, maybe he had some pressure on him. Maybe there was some more pressure. That's got to be more pressure publicly than he's ever had since he was on Art Bell, if not more. So it probably wasn't easy on him. But look, let's just look at these things real quick, right? He was on Rogan's show. They started grilling him right up front. There's some good evidence. They brought up the hand scanner. They brought up the gravity wave thing. They brought up the AA tip vids or ASAP vids, whatever they call them, the videos for the To the Star supposedly put out, which that's a whole nother topic. And then 3 or 4 of his friends confirmed they saw the craft that night where they were watching the craft. But then there's like bad stuff, like his education background doesn't add up. His employment at these places, all he has is like a little tax return or something that he showed. He says he can't mention names of the people that he went to school with for his education background to protect them. People have said that the badge that was shown is BS. And then there's the whole thing about the brothel where that's like a character challenge. And I don't get into character challenges too much because, that's stupid to me too. Yeah,
but I did look into the brothel allegation, though, Joe. I did look into it, and it doesn't add up from what I've seen.
Well, yeah, I'm sure he did it. I'm sure I don't even think he denies he did it. Does he deny that he was involved with it?
To my knowledge, he said he just set up computer equipment and stuff, records for the business itself, that he was not starting his own side prostitution ring. But the district attorney said otherwise at the time in the early 90s in Las Vegas, from what I saw from the Las Vegas Review-Journal. So, and I'm not going to say that even that in and of itself, if he wanted to make his own, side ring, as long as they're of age women and it wasn't any trafficking involved, then it's in Vegas. I mean,
to me, to bring that up in this matter is like is kind of stupid to me. I know he shouldn't have done it for public reasons. He definitely shouldn't have done it because it does question his character. Right. Yeah.
Not for who he
Yeah, but it's kind of like if somebody worked at MIT or whatever and said, well, I worked at MIT. Oh, I don't believe you. And then they go home and they watch porn. Somebody's like, oh, you're watching porn, man. You got to be a liar now. But that doesn't, to me, it doesn't make sense. So I don't even really think about that. But it does get brought up quite a bit. I mean, of course that was hidden information. Who's going to bring that stuff up? Who's going to talk about it? They found out, but it's not really hidden. But you know what I'm saying. It's a stupid fact is all I'm saying. It's not something we should look at. But some people do. They bring it up.
Yeah, I mean, out of all the worst things that anybody can do, running a brothel in Nevada where prostitution is legal in some areas and it being on board and it being adult age and everything like that, There's a lot of other things you can criticize him about.
But this whole thing, like, do you think, like, I get this feeling that, I mean, I'm kind of with Rogan. Let's pretend for a moment Rogan's not a shill, all right? And everything he says is genuine. If that's the case, then I'm with him. Like, I want to know more about the story. I'm interested in it. I kind of believe him. I kind of have my doubts. It's a huge story, etc. Right? But to me, it's like the people that want to call him like that just want to debunk him. It's almost as bad as the people that are like the woo-woo 19th dimension alien folks. Like, you can tell that they just don't like the story. They don't want it to be true, almost. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And this is beside the fact about, shills and whatnot.
But you wouldn't say that about Stanton Friedman, would you?
No, I wouldn't say that about Stanton Friedman. He's got some legitimate doubts. But I've also heard Stanton Friedman argue and debate with a lot of different people that had a lot of good points, too. Stanton Friedman is not... he was a great UFO researcher, but he's not 100%, like, he's not an angel when it comes to judgment. There's things about David Adair that he don't believe. I mean, he flat out called David Adair a fake and a liar. And later, David came out with some evidence that kind of disproved what Stanton said. So it's one of those things where when you point your finger and you call somebody a fake and a liar, I think you need to have just as much evidence, not circumstantial evidence, but real evidence, as you would if you're Bob Lazar saying that you saw aliens and UFOs, where he's got some circumstantial evidence. So that's what we got. We've got circumstantial evidence on both sides. And I don't know if we're ever going to get the real answers to this. Apparently, Corbell is saying that he's got other people with notes and other people are going to bring it out, the information. I mean, he's kind of like, you could tell he gets pissed off at people that don't believe in it. Like, if you don't believe UFOs are real right now, then you're just not looking at the information. But the evidence in question what we have to look at is, if you presented these types of things in a courtroom, would they really mean something, or would they get dismissed? I mean, think about it. We're talking about notes, the Wilson documents. Well, if you're a defender and you challenge the validity of documents, that's a whole other thing. You can't just say, well, I got a document, and that makes it true. Well, we have to figure out if those documents are valid first. Right? These are important things I think we need to look at that we're not looking at.
I agree 100%. I just wish, like everything else, that I wish Bob Lazar could give more evidence of his, I wish he, missing one degree, missing one of your degrees, if he claims that he had a master's degree from MIT and a master's degree from Caltech. Losing one of them, sure, whatever, but losing both of them, and then now investigation into his education or the qualifications that he claims. I mean, you got to admit that is suspect, though, Joe. It does make you raise eyebrows, especially since he won't, that's the thing is if his story is really true and we're taking it on face value, that he worked at the Sub-Area facility, near Area 51. If that's really true, then he should be able to give enough evidence to make people believe in the story.
There should be there should be something that's just like, I know what you're saying. By now, there should be something that is like the mic drop evidence, right? I mean, there should be somebody that would come out. I would think with all the people that are watching this story, no matter how they say the security clearance is or whatever, that somebody, I'm hoping, is going to come out, and Corbell is kind of hinting around to this stuff, is going to come out and say, yeah, I worked there. Here's my credentials. And yeah, Bob was there with me too. But see, then again, people are going to question that. They're going to say, is he paid? Is he a CIA agent? And then went round and around we go, right? So it's almost like when you really start looking at all the evidence, it gets so frustrating that you feel kind of pressured to where you have to pick a side. And I don't like that. I don't like feeling pressure where I got to pick a side. I want to know, man. I don't just want to have a hunch.
Yeah, I can see that, Joe. I can see that for sure. It's difficult. It's difficult when you're trying to get down to the bottom of it. And you're trying to find out, is Bob Lazar legit? Is what he's telling you really truthful? Is he lying just for financial gain? If he is lying, if he's lying, is he lying because he's tapped by the world order, by the United States government? It's difficult to tell. I mean, what about? Did you watch the new documentary that came out? The one that I think it came out last year. That I think it's on Netflix actually.
The one that Corbell did?
Yes.
Yeah, I saw it.
Man, it takes a lot of money to get Mickey Rooney up there, doesn't it?
Well, Mickey Rourke, yeah. When I had
Mickey Rourke, why did I say Rooney? Rourke, yes.
When I had when that came out, I had John Lear on the program, and John Lear told me that Corbell took some videos out of his John Lear's famous lair for that video, right, without permission, and Lear seemed kind of upset. But we got to talking about the Element 115, and here's the weirdest part about the whole story. The one thing that I can't get over about all of this, that I think there's something to it. Every time somebody brings up Element 115, he can't talk about it. And I don't understand what's the big deal, right? I mean, like if you look at Element 115, they discovered this, they're saying in 2004. Tim from UFO Seekers has got some information about how they had new elements way before then. It's just an element, right? To me,
yes.
It's just an element. So why all the secrecy? Why all the, man, I don't know, I want to say something, but I can't. Like they're hiding something about that he is either afraid to talk about, or if he does talk about it, it's going to be the one thing that, trips him up, that people are going to say, aha, what you're saying is wrong. And that's why he doesn't bring it up for some reason.
You think that he's not knowledgeable in the science enough? You figured he would be able to study about it by now, right? No. I think he's plenty knowledgeable. I just think about the Element 115, the moscovium. It was synthesized in Russia. You think that maybe that could be a component of it as well?
Yeah, there's something else. There's something going on that he's afraid to talk about, or it's one or two things, if you ask me. He's afraid to talk about it for safety and security reasons, or he's afraid to bring it up because if he brings up a certain point about Element 115, it's going to negate his whole story. Right? So I would look at why that's the one thing to this story, I think, where we might start getting some answers if we can ever get him to talk about it. Because even in the film, it shows him, he talks about Element 115, he walks out, and then they film him like talking about something in fast forward motion, which is, to me, is like, okay, I mean, why not just put up something in text that says, we had to delete this part anyways, but there's something there that they're trying to tease us with, or at least Corbell's trying to tease us with. And I mean, I'd like to talk to Corbell, but after he talked to Rogan, I highly doubt he's going to come back on any of these smaller shows anymore. He doesn't have to. But, oh shoot, we got to take a break. But yeah, so when we come back, we're going to talk about this a little bit more. Also, if you want to call in, or if you got somebody else that wants to chime in, John, the call-in number is 1-800-588-0335. That's the call-in number. Is toll free from the United States to Canada. I'm Joe Roop. This is Lighting the Void. It's Friday night, open lines, open text in, open whatever. We'll be right back.
This is Corbin, son of the one and only Joe Rogan, and you're listening to The Fringe FM.
Hola, Fringe listeners. This is Dave Cruz of Beyond the Strange, and you're listening to The Fringe FM.
So, have you heard of heavy metals? I'm not talking about the heavy metals in the junkyard. I'm talking about the heavy metals that build up in your body. Heavy metals in your body can make you feel sluggish, fatigued, and just plain off. Why not try Life Change Tea at getthetea.com? Cleansing your body and making you feel great. No, not cleansing the outside of your body, but cleansing the inside of your body of intruders that sneak their way into you and set up an intruder camp. Life Change Tea helps remove unwanted intruder camps. Brew it, steep it, and drink in the results. Tastes great, so you can create a new health habit. Our tea loves to help people. It just needs the chance. So order yours today by logging on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Our Life Change Super Strength Tea is waiting. This could be a beautiful relationship. Take charge of your health. Order at getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com.
Alex X. Hi, I'm Alex Exum, and you're listening to The Fringe FM.
Who were the real ancient Egyptians? What is it about ancient Egypt that captivates us all? The critically acclaimed series Magical Egypt is back with all new episodes. Let Chance Gardner and company take you on another adventure through Magical Egypt in the new series Magical Egypt 2. Magical Egypt 2 attempts a forensic reconstruction of the science of the ancients through a study of ancient aesthetics. Also, the best researchers and authors in the field like John Anthony West, Graham Hancock, Laird Scranton, Robert Duval, Lon Mao Duquette, Aaron Cheek, and more join together to explore the topics of the esoteric and the hidden messages of the ancient Egyptians. Just go to magicalegypt.com right now and put in the code word FRINGE and get 10% off any download or order, including the groundbreaking original Magical Egypt series, as well as the new episodes in Magical Egypt 2. Also, check out the great work and the companion series at magicalegypt.com. Click the banner on the Fringe FM or go to magicalegypt.com and use the code word FRINGE and get 10% off your order today while it lasts. We've heard your feedback loud and clear. You called it out, and now we're answering. All new live programming, 5 nights a week. Always remember, the Fringe FM is for you, the listener, and we appreciate your feedback. Keep the feedback coming. You can email us at talkback@thefringe.fm, call the station at 501-777-5631, or send us a message on Facebook at The Fringe FM.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now. The Paranormal Radio app. Free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
All right, everyone, this is Justin from the UK. Excuse the chitty. If you're into the Fringe and you want to hear the brass tacks, me old china plate, Joe Rogan and his guests on Lighting the Void will open your mince pies. You need to shut your north and south and use your 10-speed gears and listen to them bubble. You could hear a Barry Crocker, no Brussels, but he ain't no holy friar. Anyway, you be the Barnaby Rudge and take a butcher's.
I'm Ryan Gable, and I want to remind you to keep your radio, phone, tablet, or computer tuned to the Fringe FM, and visit the website thefringe.fm to listen to the entire lineup of shows. You can also catch my broadcast, The Secret Teachings, Monday through Friday, beginning at 12 a.m. midnight U.S. Pacific Time, right here on the Fringe FM.
Howdy, this is Catalina, and you're listening to Lighting the Void with Joe Roop.
All right, welcome back to Lighting the Void. We're here tonight with John Brisson from Fix Your Gut, fixyourgut.com. It's my conspiracy guy to go to. Well, actually, I've got two. Jason Lingren's the other one, and then you're the other guy I talk to about conspiracies. But every time this stuff comes out, tonight it's open lines on Lighting the Void. We're talking about the Joe Rogan thing here at first, the interview with Bob Lazar and Jeremy Corbell. But every time I get into this conspiracy stuff, John, I start looking at things. It's like everything is fake. Like you and I were just talking about this in the break. Everything's fake. The sky is fake. The birds are fake. NASA's fake. The space is fake. It's all fake. The Earth's flat. Joe Rogan's a shill. And hell, look, online, I found a place where I'm a shill, like Lighting the Void,
Joe,
he's a shill. What the hell's going on?
There's a big difference between Joe Rogan being a shill. That is way more likely than the Earth being flat or atomic bombs not being real. You can't, that's a false equivalency. I got to call you out on that, brother. That's a false equivalency.
But you know what I'm saying? Like everything is fake. Everything.
I understand that, and it really, really irritates me that history doesn't exist. They believe in Flamenco's new chronology. Nothing is real. The history of Tardia and mud floods, and trust me, that really grinds my gears. And people like that, it doesn't really make much sense to me. There has to be some objective truths in this reality for reality to exist. We don't live in a simulation, I believe. I believe that it is real. And there are things that we can't explain, obviously. I mean, you're searching for the truth. You want to believe just as much as I do, Joe. But to say that, nothing ever exists, it's either if you look at it from the Fetzer line that no mass casualties ever happened, or if you look at it from, like you said, Crow, of where atomic bombs aren't real, dinosaurs aren't real. It's just, at what point do you just, what's the point of all this? If this is all fake and it's all simulation, then what's the point of life?
I think, honestly, there's some kind of thrill behind super conspiracy theorists. The same thrill that people get when they go watch like a Mission Impossible movie, or the same thrill they get when they watch certain action films. They get that feeling. It makes life more exciting, because if they don't have that, life's pretty dull. And I think that's where it comes from, honestly, because anybody that's rational, that uses their rational mind, that looks into all of this stuff, that does like real investigations instead of just what I call investigative assumptions, but real investigations, like gets documents. Okay, now they got the document. Now let's verify the document. Let's make some evidence, like real evidence. Real evidence is not supposed to be questionable. That's what real evidence is.
Very much so. That's what I try to do with my investigative research. My main case being the finders back from the 1980s, trying to get the documents, trying to run down the leads. That's what people are supposed to do when we do investigative journalism. And very few people do that anymore. They only parrot what the next person is telling them. They don't ever look into it in themselves. And that's what got us in where we are now in conspiracy culture and how toxic it is.
Right, exactly. But that's not to say that there aren't some really crazy things going on. And you go to blackvault.com and you look into all the projects and all the stuff they were doing. There's definitely some real things going on here.
Oh yeah, very much so. MK Ultra, MK Often. I mean, 100%. Project Mockingbird, Operation Gladio.
I think Ron Patton, Clyde Lewis's producer, he's got a Rolodex full of all the different projects and stuff that he knows about. But, I get it. I do. I get the mentality of it. Once you find out there's a conspiracy, then you start questioning what else is going on. I've done the same thing. Like, I didn't believe in any of the spirituality woo-woo stuff until I saw myself sleeping one night, standing outside of my body. And I think that's what it takes. Like, some of the stuff has to happen to you before you actually really start believing things. But when you do investigative type stuff, which is what we should be doing, because there's no question about it. If Bob Lazar is telling the truth, then, like he said, this is probably the biggest historical event in mankind ever. I mean, in history, to me it is. So with that being said, then it should be obvious, or you would think it at least is obvious, that we should investigate this very thoroughly with no bias or preconceived notions. That's the way I look at it. My emotions, like, I want it to be true, actually. But I believe there's people that, emotionally don't want it to be true. Just like I believe, you know what I mean? There has to be. And those people...
No, you're 100% right, Joe.
You see what I'm saying? And those people get up in the mix, right? They get involved with all this stuff. And then when somebody like Rogan interviews Lazar, who is presenting himself as, an investigative person who carries no bias, but just wants to know the truth, that's how he's presenting himself, then everybody's calling him a shill. So what are we going to do? What are we supposed to do? How do we get the answers to this? How do we know? Or do we just sit back and, because if what Bob's saying is true, he don't want to be messed with anymore. He don't want people coming to his house. He don't want people calling him. Nothing. And if that's true, then what did Jeremy have to do to get him on there? Did he hold him at gunpoint? Did he beat on his door? Did he beg him?
Did he offer him money?
Yeah, did he offer him money? I don't know. He says that he just gives that money away. So
I have no answer to that, man. You're 100% right. I have no answer to that.
Well, see, it's not exciting. It's not entertainment. It's not great radio if I don't come up with different angles and make it super entertaining to make you think the world's coming to an end right now. But I can't do that.
I want QAnon to be right with every every fiber of my being, but I know it's not. I know Jordan Sather and Corey Good and all of them, they're all, blowing smoke up, our butts. So, I mean, what am I supposed to do? I mean, you just keep researching, you keep trying to seek the truth, and and you try to find out what is. I want the cabal and the deep state to be taken down by the deep state's worst nightmare, Jerome Corsi. But I just don't see that happening. Just as much as I don't see QAnon being true, and I don't see Donald Trump being for us.
I can't believe people actually think that any of those guys in the past, well, since Kennedy got shot, that any of these presidents were actually for us. I mean, we've been killing each other and fighting each other like crazy. When's the last time that we were together as a nation over one president, right? I mean, when Kennedy was in office, there were a lot of people that, didn't like the fact he was a Democrat, didn't really like him, but we were, we reached across lines. We were getting somewhere. And then whatever stepped in, whatever monolithic thing he was talking about in his speech, whatever stepped in at that point when that shot rang out, they've been making us fight each other tooth and nail. They've made things extremely more polar, and we're even more blinded since then. I mean, how can we possibly think that we think we know all this stuff? We get on these radio shows and I'm not saying people don't do real research. I know you do real research, but
there are a lot of people who don't do real research, though, Joe.
Our IQs are down. The studies are showing like our IQs are down. We're in 2019. We're supposed to be smarter and more evolved. The percentages of IQs are down. Another study found that average Americans spend only 19 minutes a day reading. Those 34 and under are reading less than 10 minutes a day. And KFC's got a new Cheetos sandwich. And we're growing bones out of the back of our head because we can't stop looking at our phone. We're growing horns out of the back of our skulls.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
And so anybody that's in this society right now that comes to tell me that they know the ultimate truth about the universe, God, and all this stuff, and the simplest investigations that we just don't have answers for like this, it's hard for me to take at face value. It's hard for me not to roll my eyes because we're a bunch of mumbling. I'm not saying humans aren't smart, but we're not as advanced as we think we are. There's a lot we don't know.
Joe, 100%, man. And also, I guess one thing about you said that I might disagree with is, what about 9/11? Didn't we all come, under George W. Bush? Now, later, you could argue that was definitely tainted and it went real sour for the world order. Mostly everybody ended up hating George W. Bush. But around 9/11, at least for 2 years, after that, we were united as a country to fight those darn terrorists and those, Muslims over there in Afghanistan and Iraq. So I guess it takes something like that for us to be fooled and bamboozled for us to come together, huh? I hope something like that doesn't happen with Iran.
All right. So what you just said makes me think, in order for us to get serious about what Bob Lazar is saying, then that means an alien attack is going to have to happen.
Yes. Project Bluebeam. It's been in the work for a long time.
They're setting it up, right?
That's what I heard the soft disclosures about, to set up a fake alien invasion. That's what I've heard. I can't prove it, but that's what I've heard.
Back in the day when I was listening to Josh and I really got into like late night internet, digital radio and stuff, I was entertained by a lot of the things that he said back then. But he's even changed his mind about some of those things, any human's going to change their mind if they keep looking into things about subjects that they believed in before, which I respect. I respect people that are self-correcting. But I did start realizing why I was addicted to it. Like back then, I had no excitement in my life. I was painting. There's nothing more boring than painting. Trust me. I was painting houses for a living. That's all I did. Paint. That's it. It sucked. It was boring. And so I got into that show and conspiracies and really started looking into the stuff. And I found out, some of the stuff did scare me, like the power of the CNP and some of these groups, these little alphabet agency groups or whatever you want to call them, that are inside of our government running the show sometimes. But the reptilian stuff, all that stuff just kind of started washing over with me. It's like, how can you, I'm not saying that Reeves was lying. I'm not saying people that believe in reptilians are lying. I just don't know how you could know. And then they said, well, show me some evidence. And then they would bring up these pictures with pixelated, it's just where the file pixelation messed up. I've even had videos that I used to shoot back in the day that had pixelation like that. And they said, look, it's a reptilian. That's not a reptilian. They're not shape-shifting. It's a pixel. And I think we're doing some of that same stuff now. We need to get over that.
I definitely agree. And I would also argue that one thing I want to bring up is that Josh Reeves has changed his stance on reptilians.
Oh, yeah,
He thinks it's now more soul cracking and Scientology type mind control, MK Ultra type stuff that's going on. And I have to agree with him on that. And he doesn't, he doesn't like David Icke very much anymore as well, which I myself don't necessarily trust David Icke very much. But yeah, it's just, you're right though, that people don't do the research. They don't follow leads. They don't pull up old newspaper articles, and they don't read old books. I got tons of old books. I mean, that's what I'm trying to do with my YouTube channel. We've read the documents, is actually read the documents, show them on screen and actually read them so people can actually learn, because no one's doing the reading anymore. No one's doing the looking. They're just parroting what their favorite YouTube researcher likes or what they've seen on radio shows, and that's causing a major problem. That's causing a major echo chamber. Just like with you've heard of adrenochrome, haven't you,
Oh,
Joe?
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, I mean, I can disprove that right here and now. You can go buy adrenochrome, pharmaceutical grade from Sigma Aldrich, and how they get it is the same way they produce artificial epinephrine. You just oxidize it, and it produces adrenochrome. And a lot of people bring up the famous line from Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas that they got adrenochrome from the adrenal glands of young boys. Well, what's the guy's name? I'm having a blank here.
It happens.
The guy, the main character, he's famous. He wrote the book Fear and Loathing in the Campaign Trail, 76. He actually, there's no reference in there about adrenochrome coming from an adrenal glands at all. So it's just interesting how that becomes in the lexicon. People run with it. And because of that, all of a sudden they think adrenochrome is this drug, and the elites have these huge farms where they're harvesting it and everything. And it's just crazy how they believe it to be true. It doesn't really make much sense of how they distort what Hunter S. Thompson said, where he just mentioned in that book that it was just a drug and it can get you mildly high. And before someone says, well, yeah, there might be a difference between the getting it, harvesting it from the gland and getting it from the drug. Well, I hate to tell these people that, but just because something's synthetic doesn't necessarily mean that it's worse. Reason being is because heroin is not as addicting and not as strong as one of the synthetic versions of it, also known as Dilaudid, hydromorphone, or oxymorphone. Either one of those drugs. They are way stronger than heroin is. So just because something's synthetic doesn't necessarily means that it works. And one last thing is your body's making adrenochrome right now, because when your body oxidates adrenaline through the catch-all methyltransferase enzyme, you're producing adrenochrome and you're not tripping. So it is a major propaganda shill that a lot of people push on, because I'm a real, conspiracy research when it comes to pedogate. We actually read the documents and read the books and everything like that, and they claim that there's these farms, these adrenochrome farms. Stuff like that outrages me, Joe.
Yeah, and it's not cool, in my opinion. It's not cool. But there are people that definitely hide things. NASA hides stuff. Like all of these agencies, they hide stuff until they can't hide it anymore. Then they have to come out and kind of tell us what happened, right? And I kind of think that's what's going on in the UFO community right now. Like there's just certain things that they can't hide anymore. That's an assumption. I don't have any real proof of that. As a matter of fact, I think those films, those FLIR videos of the UFOs and, the fast mover, the tic tac and all that stuff, the fact that the military came out and said, that those were our videos, but we didn't officially release them to anybody. They showed the documents they stated that they were never to be released. Right. And so that means, Elizondo and all these people that said they got it released to them, it's a whole other thing, right? Because they're not telling the truth about that, or somebody didn't tell them something. But either way, NASA just has been hacked. The U.S. National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA. This week they confirmed that it's JPL got hacked, like an unauthorized computer, or I guess it was just like a Raspberry Pi connected to their server and was targeted by hackers, and who then moved laterally further into the NASA network. And I don't think we really know how much they hacked, but they got as far as the Deep Space Network. It's called the DSN, or Array of Radio Telescopes, and numerous other JPL systems. So there's somebody out there that's trying to hack into NASA to find out the answers. And I'm not saying go do that, but I would be interested to see when that gets released on the internet somewhere. I'm sure it will be, whatever they found there. But that happened back in April, and NASA's just now talking about it. So they definitely do cover stuff up all the time. They definitely do work with government agencies. They work on secret projects. Hell, Elon Musk works on classified projects with the government, with the military, launching stuff up into space. We don't know what the hell is on it. He's admitted it. But to assume that it's anything is just, to me, is ridiculous. An assumption is a bad thing. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm really trying to say. And we do that a lot.
Yes, and we're all guilty of it, even if we try not to be. You know what I mean? Even I'm guilty of assumption as part of human nature. Just try your best to check your assumptions with actual evidence. That's all.
Now, one thing that people say about Bob Lazar, though, is that how could somebody have that many details about a story if they're lying? How is that possible? Well, I got to tell you, you guys must, whoever says that, whoever actually believes that fundamental thing that I just said, hasn't read science fiction, hasn't ever been around a good liar. I'm talking about real good liars and manipulators that can make up all kinds of stuff that look very convincing, that know how to lie. I mean, there's some professionals out there, man. So don't think just because somebody has all the details about a story that they're not lying. I've heard that so many times. I mean, how could they know? How could he just know all of this stuff? Hours of radio stuff. His stories never changed. Well, the story has changed a couple of times. Back when he was on Art Bell, he said he saw an alien, and now he says he's not sure. And that's just because it could be the pressure. But when you tell people on the radio that you saw an alien, or you saw a little being in a hand and made people think it's an alien, and now you want to talk like, well, it was probably a doll or something like that, that kind of makes me question your integrity, whether you're just pressured or not. You know what I mean?
Very much so. I mean, they say the same thing about Corey Goode and him, getting all his information from researching the Project Avalon forums. You'll have people like dark journalists talk about that, or C.W. Chanter. So anybody who believes that a person can't just, research a backstory and commit it and lie about it constantly, there's grifters who do that all the time. People should not be that gullible. But that being said, though, still look at the claims that Bob Lazar is giving you and factor of whether or not it goes with the knowledge that you had previously beforehand, as well as what that you can back up through what he's saying too as well, or things that you can prove that what he's saying to be true. You have to do that with everyone. Wouldn't you agree, Joe?
Yeah, I just want somebody to say for once that I believe Bob Lazar. I don't need the evidence, right? I just believe his story. I think he's telling the truth. I've got a feeling he's telling the truth, but not speak about it as if it's gospel or get all pissed off when people ask for more evidence. And it looks like we got Moonlit on the line. What's on your mind, Moon?
Long time listener, first time caller.
Yeah, whatever, brother. What's going on?
Hey, man, how you doing?
I'm perplexed, but I'm excited kind of because this is a big deal to me, this Bob Lazar case. But I'm perplexed. Yeah. I'm kind of frustrated and perplexed.
Well, it's good talking to you. And who's the gentleman you're talking to? Your cleanse guy here?
John Brisson.
John, good to talk to you, man.
You as well, Moonlit. Nice talk with you too.
What's on your mind?
Hey, I believe John Lazar wholeheartedly, and I don't give a crap about any kind of evidence you want to hear. I believe him no matter what. And yeah, if I make up a story, it's mine, and I can tell you all the details because I made it up. Okay. End of story.
All right.
But I believe Lazar. He's got so much to tell you about it, and yeah, he can't tell you all about it because if he puts up too much stuff about it, they will put a bullet in his head.
You think so?
Yeah, they'll do it. No matter what, if he pushes it too far, they will kill him.
It was trippy, right? When the videos that show him like with a Uzi and stuff. I mean, you don't go out and buy an Uzi unless you're scared. Like I've got pistols, I've got shotguns, I've got rifles. I'm a gun owner, and I'm a pretty good shot. I don't need an automatic weapon. But when you go out and purchase a freaking automatic like a Uzi, then in your mind you're thinking, I'm going to get attacked, and I'm going to get attacked in a severe way. I need fire suppression and fire superiority. I mean, that's what I'm thinking. Oh yeah, and they did everything they could to get him to knock himself off, to whack himself, and to take out anybody else, just to give the police and anybody else a reason to take him out or whatever. They wanted to do anything to get him to screw up, to drive his car off a cliff or into a guardrail or whatever to end it, and you name it. They did every trick in the book, to get him. So you think all that stuff about where they went into his past and got rid of all his education background and got rid of all his documents and all that was to really not only to discredit him, but to get in his mind? Oh yeah, it stinks to high heaven. I mean, anytime you go through all that kind of stuff and everything else, and then all of a sudden, you call into Los Alamos and they said no, he never existed, then all of a sudden it turns up in a phone book for Los Alamos, and there's his name in the phone book. Okay? That's proof enough right there. I mean, they caught him red-handed right there, the government in Los Alamos and everybody else in a lie right there. That was enough evidence right there to know that they were lying and covering it up. And you don't make up a phone book. That right there was enough for everybody to know, well, right there, the government's covering this up. Los Alamos, and everybody got caught red-handed right there. Okay? What do you think, John? You think he makes a point?
That is a point, but I will say that what if Bob Lazar is telling the truth, okay? Is it a possibility that he also spins the truth because he worked for the United States Department of Naval Intelligence? I mean, people say that about Bill Cooper, and I love Bill Cooper. But they still say that, some of the stuff that Bill Cooper said may have been disinfo because of him working for the U.S. Department of Naval Intelligence. So the same with Bob Lazar. Let's take everything he said at face value. Let's say that he's telling the truth. If someone's telling him that he can't say certain things, that's still him, working with the government. Granted, it's, for his own, to save his own skin, but that's still him taking, you understand what I'm saying? It's still them being able to control him. Like some people have a saying, there's not such thing as a whistleblower. Once you work for the government, you always work for the government. I don't necessarily know if that's true.
So my question though is, so Moonlit brought up the phone book, right? My question though is, do you think that he worked there, number one, and that he saw an alien ship, number two?
I think it's possible, but I don't know if it's plausible. I don't have enough evidence to say that it's plausible. I think it is possible, though. I won't discount Bob Lazar as a complete liar now.
Okay, so let's flip the coin here. Let's go through it on the opposite side of the looking glass, as we always put it, okay? So here we go. We're taking Bob Lazar as being a government agent, and he's going to go ahead and lead us all down the rabbit hole. So we're going to go ahead and say that Bob Lazar purposely is going to be a whistleblower. He's going to be a CIA operative, and he is going to go ahead and take us and purposely expose Area 51 into the open. Okay? We didn't know about Area 51, and the government wanted to expose Area 51 to the public. Okay? So they wanted to go ahead and show Area 51 to the American public for once, and just wanted to go ahead and show it all off.
I got what you're
saying. Because Area 52 is where the real stuff happens.
Yeah, they just got tired of having a secret. Okay?
Yes.
They got tired of having Area 51 covering up all this stuff, and they wanted to expose that base to everybody. Nobody knew about it. It was all a big cover-up at the time. So they wanted to go ahead and, get that real estate brought out in the public. They wanted to go ahead and do that, so they brought it out in the public. And, they wanted to get that and then bring the heat over to there. And, so they could go ahead and move the shell game over to here because the Russians already knew about it.
So it just doesn't at all. So I get what you're saying, right? So, so you're just saying all of the effects of Bob Lazar's story couldn't have been what the government wanted because he ended up revealing a lot of things that weren't meant to be revealed. It doesn't make sense why they would do that. Basically, is what you're saying.
There's too much going on. So, if we're doing this, if we're going to play that game, there's a whole lot of things that happen. So there were either things going on that the Russians knew, or there was somebody who was going to blow the whistle already. So they're going to do a preemptive strike. Okay.
Or is it what about a game of look over here but don't look over here? What about that?
Well,
they do that all the time.
I'm going to go down this list like this chick that just came out and published.
What are you talking about? Like the Kansas City Shuffle? Is that what you mean?
Yeah,
I'm saying look at this hand, don't look at this hand. They do that quite often with everything.
Yeah, when you play that little game with the foam thing, and you put down your $20 bill in New York City, and they do the shuffle around the queen or whatever like that, or the cup with the thing and 3-card Monty or whatever like that. And this chick that just went ahead and published her own nude pictures because somebody was blackmailing her. So I did a preemptive strike, and here are my nude pictures. Okay.
Yeah. So hold on a second. Hold on. What chick are you talking about?
Oh, well, there was a lady just recently in the news, came out just this week. She was being blackmailed. She was an actress. She was being blackmailed by some guy, and she went ahead and published her nude or semi-nude pictures.
Oh, okay.
Because she was being blackmailed, and so she went ahead and
published
them.
That's pop culture. That's pop culture news. I don't watch that stuff.
I don't either. I just saw it on one of these daytime talk shows with the women.
I think you make a valid point, Moon. You do. You make a good point. We're at the top. Well, we're past the top of the hour, but you make a good point. And I like the fact that at least you said, "Hey, I don't really care about the evidence and all that. I believe it's." See, if more people come out and say that, I'd get with it. It's just it's getting like political, kind of. Like Bob Lazar is the savior, or Bob Lazar is the ultimate BS artist. There's not a lot of middle ground. And then my whole point in the frustration is like when a guy like Rogan comes out and who looks, he appears to be a middle ground guy, but Brisson doesn't think so. He's a shill. So who do we trust? We'll be right back. 1-800-588-0335 is the call-in number. Stay with us.
I love magic, and on Lighting the Void, each and every week, you will get to hear shows about magic, mysticism, and many other subjects that stretch your mind and imagination. So when I got my mind on the magic and the magic on my mind, I listened to Lighting the Void on the Fringe FM. It's magic.
May the gods look with favor upon you.
You're wondering what we're going to do to you, aren't you?
This is Elle. I listen to Lighting the Void because it's interactive radio with good content, interesting guests, and a humble host, sharing his journey through the esoteric. Hey, Joe Roop. Thanks for having us along for the ride.
Thank you so much. What a delightful evening.
Well, I got a lot of ground to cover.
Somewhere between abnormal and paranormal, there's a show called Into the Paranormal. I'm Jeremy Scott. Hear me live Saturdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 Eastern on the Fringe FM.
Introducing Shadow Light Tarot from Waking Canvas, the Fringe FM's new contributing artist, Eric Tesey. This hand-illustrated black and white self-published deck serves as a reinvention of the tarot never before witnessed. Each of the several suits of this 88-card deck lineup form an infinite panoramic scene. Even the included visual companion guidebook is entirely hand-illustrated, cover to cover, with beautiful visuals and esoteric symbols and artwork. The newly released deck comes in a custom magnetic box with its own travel pouch. The Shadow Light Tarot Premium Deck and its travel-sized mini deck Wonderlight Tarot are both available now from WakingCanvas.com. If you use the code word FRINGE, that's F-R-I-N-G-E at checkout, you'll receive an extra 10% off your entire order. To discover more, including a free reading and time lapses of all the illustrated artwork, make your way over to WakingCanvas.com today. That's WakingCanvas.com. We all have that story to tell in our lives. The winds were howling, the ground shook, you could hear rushing water, and then history repeats itself. When there's no power, refrigeration fails, stores with their shelves stripped bare, ATMs can't operate, deliveries stop. Then what? These events can last days or weeks. You need a plan. In statements made during recent interviews, FEMA Administrator Brock Long has repeatedly urged all Americans to understand three truths. FEMA is broke, the system is broken. If this is the new normal, Americans can't rely on federal cavalry when disaster strikes. Don't get caught out in the elements empty-handed. Prepare with us by going to preparewiththefringe.com and get your 2-week food supply, 92 servings, 8 food varieties with 25-year shelf life. Normally $137, now only $75. Or get a month's supply, normally $247, now only $147, shipped in one business day. Just go to preparewiththefringe.com or call 888-440-7931. That's 888-440-7931. Get this great offer and be prepared while it lasts.
We've heard your feedback loud and clear. You called it out, and now we're answering. All new live programming, 5 nights a week. Always remember, the Fringe FM is for you, the listener, and we appreciate your feedback. Keep the feedback coming. You can email us at talkback@thefringe.fm, call the station at 501-777-5631, or send us a message on Facebook at The Fringe FM.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now. The Paranormal Radio app. Free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
You're listening to Lighting the Void Radio.
Occult Arcana is a balanced and objective guide to those subjects considered a part of the nature of light and darkness. Addressed in this text is a compilation of material that will provide new perspectives and awaken latent abilities that we all possess. The content herein shall provide magical sustenance for adept and novice alike, and will help strengthen the cornerstone of mystic understanding and alchemical transmutation. If you are interested in this modern grimoire, you can find detailed information and ways to order by visiting www.thesecretteachings.info. Although esoteric and occult studies remain vast, they are rooted within a universal philosophy that is difficult, if not impossible by finite terms, to explain in words. Language places restriction and erects barriers to understandings. By this it is to be understood that there are some things man should consider far too sacred to profane with definition. For these concepts and the manner by which we live our lives, we shall take a note from the Greek philosopher Pythagoras. Quote, "Silence is better than unmeaning words." End quote. To get your autographed copy of Occult Arcana today, simply visit www.thesecretteachings.info or email The Secret Teachings at rdgable@yahoo.com.
All right, welcome back to Lighting the Void. I'm your host, Joe Roop. Don't forget the show's here for you 5 nights a week, and every Friday night we have a guest host come on from somewhere, some other show, something. Usually I'll have a guest host either come on from this network, another network. I just like to have people, other content creators, come on as a guest host, and then we open the phones up and we talk about whatever we feel like. So tonight we've been talking about the Bob Lazar interview on Joe Rogan. I'm here with John Brisson from FixYourGut.com, who's, I think his chair's breaking. Is that your chair doing that?
Sorry about that. Yeah, that was my back.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people make some good points, but I'm kind of curious to see what Corbell's going to come up, because he seems to be a little overzealous, you know? Like, you could tell a little bit that Corbell was getting on Rogan's nerves a little bit. But just a little, not much, because I've seen him get really frustrated with people on there. But on the other hand, Jeremy is really excited about this, because, I mean, if he breaks this story, it's going to be one of the biggest stories ever. And just imagine this. I want you to imagine if this was you. Before you go naysaying, imagine you are the person that's going to break the biggest story possibly ever in the United States or in the world about aliens and technology. Imagine that's you, and you want to make a documentary about it, and you break the story, and you talk to people. You have to think that half of the world that's interested in this or not is going to come down on you. It's just logic. There's always going to be people that are going to hate you. I don't know one famous person or anybody that's broke big stories, not even Bob Woodward, when he breaks stories about presidents that have all kinds of, just evidence that there's no denying. There's still people that say he's a shill and a government agent just because they don't agree with him. And 90% of those people are mad, or, if you talk to them enough, is what I'm trying to say. That's the thing about it. If you always talk to somebody long enough, you'll figure out their agenda and why they believe these things they're so sure about. That's kind of like why, like John and other people like Jason, there's not too much bias there. Well, especially with you, John. I know you and I don't agree on a lot of things, but we do agree on some of the most important things, like research methods, or how are you getting this evidence, things like that.
Very much so, Joe. And I think we probably agree more than we disagree on things. But I mean, Jeremy Corbell, again, I like some of the work that he's done. Like, I'm not gonna, some of his documentaries that he's put out. I remember watching the one Hunt for Skidwalker Ranch.
I haven't seen that.
I thought it was really good. I mean, I enjoyed it. I thought the Bob Lazar documentary, again, was all over the place. But what I found interesting enough is that he was on Fox News to promote the Bob Lazar documentary.
Well, didn't Trump just say, he came out and say he didn't believe in UFOs? I think Micah Hanks covered that.
It's weird. So they're trying to push this soft disclosure, I think. And I do think that, like with everything, it's so compartmentalized. The world order is so compartmentalized that you're going to have people that are in on it that know from the top that are what's going on. People who are in on it who know very little information. People what you call useless dupes who are not in on it but have fell for the plan. And people that are in it that are going to go with it just to make money. Okay, and I'm probably missing some people out of those. So where does these people fall? Where does Bob Lazar fall? Where does Jeremy Corbell fall? Where does Joe Rogan fall? I don't know. I don't have an answer.
We're just gonna have to sit back and watch.
Yeah, that's all we can do.
I will tell you that, and a lot of people are pissed off at Tim Doyle for his research, but I will tell you that when it comes to this whole To the Stars, George Knapp, Luis Elizondo situation, that whole agenda, that Tim has really uncovered some stuff that doesn't make them look so good, man.
Oh, well, I mean, what about Tom DeLonge's connections with John Podesta and the I think there's two different soft disclosures. If you're going to talk about the CFR and the CMP, the CFR is the To the Stars, the Academy, Tom DeLonge, Podesta, Hillary Clinton claiming she wanted disclosure. That's what you're going to get with that. And then with, I don't know, maybe there's another side of disclosure, like with Corey Goode and David Wilcox and Jordan Sather, you're going to get the CMP's version of soft disclosure. I don't know which one I want, but you're going to get either one depending on how you look at it. And I sadly don't trust either one in that regard. I don't know about you, but I mean, Ryan Gable's done some work exposing Jordan Sather. C.W. Chanter with C.W. Chanter and I have our own arguments. He's done excellent work on this stuff with exposing Corey Goode and exposing David Wilcox. So I don't know. Either way, that's what I'm saying. If something ever comes up tomorrow that proves aliens, you really got to look over it with a fine-tuned comb. You really got to look at it with a magnifying glass. And Josh Reeves has been saying it for years that that's how they're going to control us, is with some sort of fake disclosure, some sort of Project Bluebeam event, Joe.
Well, another point that he made, and I forget what night it was, that I'll totally agree with him on, it's like the point that point where you stop, or you stop investigating and you start believing. That's the point where you're probably never going to get to the real truth anymore.
Yes.
You're either the type of person that wants to know or you want to believe. That's it. Now, if you're a person that wants to know, and if you find yourself, and I've found myself in this situation a lot, where I want to believe and I stay there. If you stay in that position, then you're done. There's no more investigations. There's no more, you're just done. Right. So it's like, he brought that up the other night. I've changed my mind about this stuff. There's things that I didn't know now that I I know now that I didn't know then. And you've got to keep asking questions. You can't just believe, you uncover a new piece of information, right? You can't just go with it no matter how good it is and say, this is the ultimate truth, about certain subjects. For example, if you found a piece of information about Masons, like the Freemasons, and I've discussed this quite a bit, that 33rd degree Freemasons aren't evil because I found out they were giving money to charity, or they're giving away money. They gave away charity money, right? So they're not evil. They're good people. And I believe that. When you start believing those types of things, then you're done. You don't investigate anymore. I think belief is a problem.
It depends on who the Mason is. Your local masonry hall down the street, more than likely they're not part of some grand conspiracy. No. However, if it's someone who's a big 33rd degree Mason, or even a big 32nd degree Mason who's part of the world order, that really needs to make you think possibly that maybe they're not getting things done for us. You know what I mean?
Maybe. See, that's another thing, the whole New World Order stuff. That's really happening in a way it's too obvious. And when I say New World Order, I'm not talking about cabal or archons. I'm just talking about a global social plan that's happening. That's been going on for a long time. All you got to do is watch mainstream news and you'll see that. You know, there's all kinds of collusion that's been going on for years. But the Masonry thing is a touchy subject because I've got a lot of friends that are Masons. You know, I never made it to Master Mason, but I was like a fellow craft before I left. I left Masonry in Arkansas because the Grand Lodge here just is doing crazy stuff, man. It's 2019 and the Grand Lodge here still won't recognize Prince Hall Masons, but they're not racist. How can you say you're not racist if you don't recognize? I don't want to get too deep into that story, but if you don't recognize Prince Hall Masonry, then you're not really a Mason, in my opinion. It's just disgraceful. And even right now, there's other southern states that don't recognize the state of Arkansas. So it's political. It's almost like when you join a dojo. I don't know if you ever took karate when you're a kid or joined any self-defense class, and they want to fight the other dojo, and then there's politics about who's got what belt and sensei this, and it's all a bunch of BS. And it's not what you really study about. It's not what you think, like the esoteric wisdom that you find in it that's a beautiful thing that you become attracted to, and then you get involved with it, and you find out it's just a bunch of old dudes, money-hungry old dudes that are just trying to manipulate things, at least in this state, with lawsuits and everything else, and being racist and biased towards certain religions and stuff. It's just insane. All you got to do is just search Grand Lodge of Arkansas. There's a ton of stuff on it.
Yeah, so, I mean, I understand what you're saying as far as the world order is concerned. It's very hard to, if anybody ever tells you that they got the whole thing mapped out, like the Deep State Mapping Project or like the Q map, we got down to the bottom. Interesting enough, the CMP is not in those maps. Ironically enough. But you got to keep digging. You got to keep searching. You always got to keep learning. And actually, you're right. I don't want to say I want to believe anymore. That's never really been my thing. It's I want to know. That's all I've ever cared about, Joe, is I want to know. I want to know what this existence is all about. I want to know how deep this goes. How many arms does the octopus have, and how big are those arms? That's what I want to know. I don't want to believe, because the moment I start believing, you're right, it's done. There's no more searching. And that's impossible when it comes to certain subjects. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think people just want, they want something undisputable, and that's hard to find. And that's to Corbell's point. Like, what do you want? You want the DNA of an alien off one of Bob Lazar's T-shirts? I mean, there's so much stuff out there. There was some more, like another evidence of UFOs. I think it was it Kansas or Kentucky today? I forget. There's so many damn stories. But what we got to watch out for is the media now. So the media is pandering towards us. They got all these new shows coming out on the History Channel, not just the one that's out now. They're about to do another one about the Skinwalker Ranch. And all of these things that we talk about that social media is pushing away with their artificial intelligence algorithms, the mainstream companies like Viacom, all these people that are running like TV and stuff, they're making TV shows left and right about it because we have fanatics here. And that's what they miss. They miss that stuff. They miss fanatics. They can make a lot of money off fanatics. We've seen it with the UFO evangelism, where you can literally tell a story that you got from somebody else or 4 other people, put a story together, call yourself a super soldier and say that you have insiders, and become an evangelist for 4 or 5 years, make, God, how much money do you think those cats made?
And Joe, who controls majority of the evangelists, the Council for National Policy?
Yeah. Yeah.
The moral majority,
Yeah, but I'm talking about UFO evangelists. You're talking about Christian evangelists,
right?
About
Christian evangelists for a minute, yeah.
It's the same thing, right? It's the same idea. It's the same thing.
Yes, it is.
Once people really start believing and they become cult-like, you got them. They'll buy your books, they'll buy your programs, they'll follow you around, they'll go to, you can name your price and they're going to pay it. You could do anything you want with them. And eventually, if you let that get out of hand, and I'm glad that we didn't, I'm glad there were enough people. There's not just Ryan Gable, not just C.W. Chandler and dark journalists and other people like Joe from the Carolinas.
Poor Joe for Carolinas that he got doxxed. Poor Joe.
Yeah, there was a lot of people that were against this, trying to fix the community, but they were too afraid to come out in the public and say anything. Do you know how many people I talked to that I would ask them about it and say, what do you think about it? Because I never knew. When Ryan would come to me and say, look, Corey Good's full of it. These people are telling you falsities, blah, he'd just tell me all this stuff. And I was like, at first I was like, you sure you're just not mad? I didn't even know the guy's story. And I'm going to be flat out honest with you. And this is kind of embarrassing to say, but I'll say it. I never really, to this day, I still don't know his whole story and what he said and believes. I never paid it that much attention. Because when you tell me that you were on Mars, or you say, yeah, I was on Mars, and there's a super soldier program, and I never believed it from the start, so I never really paid it any attention. I can't be the only one that feels like that. But it's like all this community talks about is that now,
They want to believe, do they not?
Oh, yeah, they want to believe, and I understand, I get it. I totally get it. I understand why you want to believe. You're human. You want to believe that there's something fantastic going on in the universe, unexplainable things. And there probably is. I mean, probability tells us that there is. But these stories, when people say, I have the explanations, and I can tell you about the intergalactic community and the stars and all this stuff like Lazar was talking. Even Lazar came out and said, the government told me they got this stuff from Zeta Reticuli. And like he said, I don't know how they could have known that. I mean, it's 30-something light years away. It's a binary star system. There's no way they could have known that. And then they brought up disinfo. Immediately, their brains went into, that's got to be disinfo. It don't make sense. Well, I'm just telling you, when this Corey Good stuff and the blue alien thing or whatever came out, that's what my brain went to immediately. To me, it was logical to think that this is insane. I'm not even going to go down that road. If they prove it somehow or something spectacular comes out, I'll start looking into it. But I never got on the radio and told people, let's take these people down, because I always assumed that, the truth is just going to happen and it's always going to conquer. But that's not always the case. But
how many people still believe in QAnon?
A lot.
How many people still believe in flat Earth?
A lot. Actually, I don't know about the flat Earth thing. I've never talked to.
Oh, there's still people still believing in flat Earth. Trust me.
Really?
And I'm going to say that 99.9% I think the Earth is round or some shape that's not flat and the firmament and everything. But there is a 0.01% chances I've never been to space to actually see it for myself. I don't know, Joe. At least be honest about that.
All right, so check this out. I think this is what Moon was wanting to say before I hung up on him. During break, he said, George Knapp, Harry Reid, Tom DeLonge, Louise, and the rest of the To the Stars Academy Arts and Sciences little project, the CIA, the Pentagon, etc., are all a part of a disinformation program. This program, now I'm just quoting, this is in the chat, so don't think I'm saying this. The program has the hallmark of a CIA project. You can tell by the Hollywood movie-like plots that are going on, Ocean 11 type subject matter. Congress insists on this type of crap when they approve of the funding. That's why the CIA pitches these stupid types of programs to them. It's typical misdirection, multiple plates in the air on many stages to keep the American public looking at them while they're pulling off the misdirection to cover up their real agenda. They're going to tell us with the To the Stars Arts and Science fiasco that this whole thing is a drone program for defense programs of missile defense and possibly other countries' space programs for shooting down satellites, etc. And we need to invest in space defense programs for the United States, while the whole time we already have a space force in place. See, I've been saying that too. Like, they stir up enough stuff so we can get behind it and start believing in it. They're going to start scaring us about space. They already are. Asteroids, Chinese satellite weapons, laser weapons that the Chinese have. It's in the news every single day. He's got a point.
Very much so. What about the CMP's involvement of publishing many UFO books and ufology in the early 1970s through Regnery Publishing, the Regnery family. I guess it was before the CMP. It's actually the John Brisson Society. But what about that, Joe? Have you ever heard any of that? Weishaupt talks a lot about it on his blog. You know, that they published works by John Allen Hynek, and who's a participant in Project Blue Book, and W. Raymond Drake, and worked on ancient astronaut theory. Even Jacques Vallée. You know, they published books, you know, by these people, and you know, Regnery would go later. The Regnery family would go later to found the National Policy Institute with one Richard B. Spencer. So they were known white supremacists because the Regnery family also started America First as well during the 1930s.
In the 70s.
Yes, they're publishing UFO books.
That's strange, man. Yeah, that does stink. Look, if there's one group that scares the hell out of me, it's the Council for National Policy. You know, that's like if you're a real conspiracy theorist, you got to know who they are. And I wonder sometimes, man, and I'm glad that you study on them, because I wonder sometimes if they're not behind just every stupid thing that we've been talking about since then.
Well, they have controlled conspiracy culture, both them and the John Birch Society, 100%. I mean, Alex Jones is a big part of the CMP. Joel Skousen, W. Cleon Skousen. I mean, none dare call it a conspiracy as far as the JBS. I mean, they've all been in control of conspiracy culture since God knows when. Did you know in the release of the recent JFK files, Joe, that it came out that Officer J.D. Tippit was head of the John Birch Society in Dallas, Texas?
Ooh, yeah, that's nasty. Yeah. Check this out too. This is something I wanted to. This could be why every time we bring up Element 115, they shy away from it. Now hear this out, right? This is from Tim Doyle, and he did some research and he found out. This is an article that he pulled from 1974 that where they already discovered Element 115. Predicted properties of the super heavy elements, element 3, I guess, and element 115, bismuth 1A. 1974, they were talking about this element. Not the 90s, not the late 80s, not the early 80s, not the late 70s, but 1974. Element 115 is expected to be in group V, A, or dash A of the periodic table, and has most stable this is probably from a German, that has most stable oxidization, I can't say that word, states of 1 and 3. The oxidation state of 1, which plays a minor role in bismuth chemistry, should be a major factor in 115 chemistry. This change will arise because of the large relativistic splitting of the spherically symmetric. It's a bunch of scientific jargon. Anyways, they discovered this, were testing it and working with it in 1974. And every time we bring up element 115, and I'm not saying this disproves Lazar, but this is some stank evidence right here that element 115 isn't exactly a new thing. I mean, this looks like German. I'd have to put this in the, if you just go to UFO Seekers on Twitter, just look at it. You'll see it.
Yeah, that's crazy because I thought it was way more recent than that. But if that's the case, then yeah, that does cast some shade, does it not?
He got this out of the Oak Ridge National Library. I mean, Tim does some heavy research. Like, this is a document that can be validated that there was some research going on about element 115 in 1974, where they were already talking about grouping it in the periodic table. And it was, okay, so this was in Darmstadt, Germany. The Germans, not the Russians.
Sprechen Sie Deutsch.
Think about that.
I wonder if it came from their stuff, you know?
And I had John Lear on the program and asked him about element 115, and he kind of hinted around that he had some of it. And another guy had a piece of it, and they were hiding it or something. I'm like, man, if you're saying that on a radio show, well, shouldn't the FBI just be beating your door down right now? They never went after Lear.
Shouldn't they be coming after you right now for the knowledge you just dropped?
That's a newspaper article. I mean, I'm thinking, are we really this bad at research? How come nobody's asked Bob Lazar about this? Or Jeremy Corbell about this?
Exactly. That's, Joe, there you go. That's, now the gears are starting to turn, and you're starting to be like, wait a minute, something don't add up here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean,
because no one asks the hard questions anymore, man. I went to the Red Pill Expo, and I tried to some degree, and it's difficult. You know, people either, dodge you or act like they don't know. Like when I tried to ask Luke Radowski if he's ever heard of the CMP, and he was like, yeah, I've heard of them, and then completely walked away from me. You know, it makes it difficult to get any true answers out of anybody at this point. You know what I mean? And then the people that actually asked about the CMP that were genuinely talking to me about it and wanted to know more about it, that if I tell you, hey, there's a group that's been controlling conspiracy culture and conservative, neoconservative, and white nationalist politics since the 1980s, you think someone would go, I've never heard of that before. Tell me more. You know what I mean?
Yeah. See,
especially searching for the truth.
But so when they bring up about Element 115, I wish I had that audio clip, but he just goes blank. I can tell he doesn't want to. There's something big about this and it's either a huge whammy of information to disprove the story. Like, I don't think they want us digging into this for some reason, right? And I'm looking at the Twitter. God, these people on Twitter, you're like freaking animals. If Tim puts out something I'm sorry, but this is a real document. And all it's stating is that they were, doing this stuff in 1974. They were talking about Element 115, working with it, experimenting with it, stuff like that. And there's people on Twitter, like Freemason guy, calling him a disinfo guy, calling Tim a disinfo guy. Just because, you see what I mean? There's some bias here where people get upset when you disprove what they believe, or you put out something that may disprove what they believe about a story. They get so mad. The first thing they do is call you a disinfo agent.
They got to put their hands in their, their ears and go, la, 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 la. I don't want to hear it. That's what they always do.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm not saying like Bob Lazar said that he's not real clear about who else was messing with it, the studies on it. It's very muddy, right? It's very muddy. But I think that might be the big secret there. That might have something to do with fuel. It might have something to do with weaponry. It might be something the government's been hiding for years, and they damn sure don't want anybody talking about it. Element 115 could be the reason why some people went missing, or it could be just an element that people have been researching for a long time, and Bob Lazar didn't think that we were going to do our research about it, and it negates his story. I don't know.
Again, the first one seems possible. The second one seems plausible. So, I don't know either. I guess we'll never know. Or will we? Will someone actually ask him the hard questions? Because, Joe, no one really does that anymore. Have you noticed that people, when they do these interview shows, they never ask. They always fold when they ask, when you got a guy on, and you're going to ask him the true questions to get down to the bottom of it, The person who's the host of the show, they either don't ask the question, or the person that they ask the question to, they just dance around it, and the host gives up and doesn't keep pressing them on that. You don't have anybody really going after people anymore when you need to get the truth. It just rarely happens.
Well, when you go back and you look at the original Lazar story, right? Like I was telling you earlier, a lot of things changed. But one of the biggest discussions they had on the Art Bell show, one of the biggest topics was Element 115, right? It was a major topic. And Bob Lazar got all the credit back then, and even to this day, according to some people, for predicting that element, when in fact, it looks to me like there were a few German scientists who had already had this thing down pat in the 70s. So if they had that in the 70s, and this is a true disinfo campaign like you're talking about, imagine what they really have. Imagine the kind of stuff they really have. Like they want us to be focused on 115 and create this big mystery around it so we can say that it might be a fuel source for these nuclear reactors and anti-gravity, when in fact it's old technology. It's not even the real secrets. Well, that's a trippy thought, isn't it?
And that really gets you down another, train of thought, another branch of the octopus. It's tough, man. It's really tough. The more you think you know things, the more you find out that you don't know crap.
Man,
it's always like that.
And the problem is too, let's just get down to the real biggest problems that we have with this. There was a time when somebody like Tim Doyle or another researcher could put something out like that, and we could ask the questions on the air without pissing off 10,000, like an armada of people. If the CIA is doing what I think they're doing, or intelligence, or whoever the hell it is, cabal, whatever you want to call it, then they have really done their job at dividing us and making us pissed off at each other about our own beliefs. It's incredible. I mean, look at this guy. Like Tim Doyle got shots of Area 51. Coast to Coast was posting that stuff on Stellar and everywhere. They kind of gave him credit. They'd mention his name. And it's not just because I'm partial to Tim. The reason why I'm partial to Tim is because he does real research, kind of like I'm partial to you and Josh Reeves and stuff, right? But he's doing way more than any YouTube video, secure team, or whatever that you can imagine when it comes to this stuff. And all he gets is, you have to excuse my French, but all he gets is shit. That's all he gets is shit from people.
Yeah, and there have been a lot of people that have just given up. A lot of people have just given up searching for the truth because they get called shills. I mean, it happened to Jack Blood. It's happened to a lot of people.
I'm going to give you a little hint on Jack Blood. Jack Blood may be back in the fold.
Uh-oh. You heard it here first, folks. Maybe.
He may be coming back into the fold. But yeah, he did give up. Like, he was fed up with everything. Man, he was good, wasn't he? Jack Blood. He was. Yeah. Good. Yeah, he was real good. Does research. Very passionate guy. Very good radio guy. I'm going to try to convince this guy to come back into the fold, hopefully.
Well, if you did, you're doing the world a service, Joe.
Right. Well, I was going to put Reeves on here, but he thinks I'm a shill or something, or he got suspicious about me.
Yeah. Josh Reeves, can you blame him about him being not trusting anyone after what bringing out the CMP did in 2009 did to his career?
Not really. I don't blame him. I don't get upset with him, but it's like, we need these people back, man. We need them back into the fold.
We do.
But, damn it. You made me skip another break. Look, if you guys want to chime in on this stuff, I thought you had some buddies that were going to call in and chime in.
I thought they were going to call in, but they were just in the Discord chat. It looks like the Discord chat blew up. So
these damn chat rooms, these chat rooms are ruining radio. I'm telling you guys. Back in the day, we didn't have chat rooms. We just had phones, and you called in at least, like Moon, and you spoke your mind. But I'm just playing. I'm not going to kill the chat room or nothing. I like it. I put memes in it and GIFs. I'm a chat room nut. Be right back. John Brisson, Fix Your Gut.
Music app?
Yeah, check it out. Surfer Music Discovery. It links to thousands of online stations, but the twist is you see the song names and artists that are now playing live.
That's different. No guessing. Looks like a waterfall of music.
So many formats. Rock, oldies, country, R&B, jazz, and a whole lot more.
How's that spelled?
Surfer. S-U-R-F-R.
Is it expensive?
It's free. No need to sign up or sign in.
Get the Surfer Music app free from Google Play or the App Store.
Hello, this is Vance Nesbitt.
Take the time to expand your mind by listening to Lighting the Void with Joe Roop right here on The Fringe FM.
Hi, this is Aaron Hunter, host of Real Paranormal Activity, the podcast, and you're listening to The Fringe FM.
From Studio 401, it's the Stranger Than Fiction News right here on The Fringe FM. I'm Vance Nesbitt, and here's our headlines. An unidentified flying object has been filmed from a mountain overlooking the top of the secret U.S. Air Base Area 51 in Groom Lake, Nevada. Hikers scale Tikaboo Peak in Nevada to overlook the secretive base, which is thought to be where the latest aircraft technology is tested. Speculators claim the mysterious U.S. airbase has been closed down, but YouTuber Adventures with Christian captured helicopters, trucks, and planes there. And 11 minutes into the 22-minute video, a strange floating white UFO can be seen close to a plane that is entering a hangar, though it is unlikely to be alien activity. A huge new hangar can also be seen, the latest change to the base in almost 10 years. The hangar is approximately 210 feet wide by 250 feet long and is very high. You can see the video and read more of this story at Daily Mail Online. And exorcist bishop pours holy water on an evil city from a helicopter. Ruben Montoya wants to use his position as Bishop of Buenaventura in Colombia to purge the streets of evil. Montoya told local radio station Blue Radio, "We want to go around the whole of Buenaventura from the air and pour holy water onto it to see if we exorcise and get out all those demons that are destroying our port so that God's blessing can come and gets rid of all the wickedness in our streets." Local media reports the National Army supports the bishop's plan and have offered him the use of a helicopter to carry it out. Source, the Daily Star. And our sun can spawn dangerous superflares, according to a new research. High-energy superflares are typically associated with young, quickly rotating stars, but new evidence suggests mature floating stars like our own can still churn out the odd superflare. Stars located hundreds of light years away sometimes belch out powerful energy enough to be detected by astronomers here on Earth, known as superflares. They're like normal strength solar flares, but on a much grander scale. Conventional thinking suggests superflares are produced by young stars that our middle-aged sun, which is 4.6 billion years old, is largely immune to such spasmodic bursts of energy. New research published in Astrophysical Journal suggests superflares can indeed be generated by mature, slowly rotating star like our sun. Source, Gizmodo.com. And here's another fun fact to make the Fringe listeners the smartest in the world. The word go is the shortest complete sentence in the English language. Thanks for listening to the Stranger Than Fiction News right here on the Fringe FM. Again, I'm Vance Nesbitt, news anchor and sorcerer.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app. Free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
You know, food was different 60 years ago. It was minimally processed, free of pesticides. It was nourishing and healthful for your body. Today, GMOs, pesticides, herbicides, and heavy processing have depleted the nutrition of our food supply, which takes a toll on our health and energy. It's harder than ever to get the right nutrition. That's what Life Change Tea is meant to counteract. Our specially blended, powerful herbal formulas can give you more energy without caffeine. It's a mild cleanse, a mild daily detox, A good detox can help revive and bring back the energy of your youth. GetTheTea.com is the website. It'll cleanse you from the inside out with this herbal proprietary formula. Go to GetTheTea.com. There's no fillers, no GMOs. It's organic. Not available in stores. You must go to their website, GetTheTea.com. And their supplements are a great way to maintain your health. Read the testimonials on the website. Go to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com.
To call Joe, pick up the phone, dial 1-800-588-0335, toll free from the United States or Canada. You're listening to Lighting the Void Radio.
Welcome back. Make sure you stay tuned too. After the program, The Secret Teachings with Ryan Gable is going to come on. And the Fringe FM is here for you every single night, starting about drive time all the way into the early morning hours. We have live and brand new showings for you. And tonight it's Friday night open lines here on Lighting the Void if you're just tuning in. And we're with John Brisson from Fix Your Gut. So for the first part of the show, we've been talking about the Joe Rogan interview, what's been going on with that, Bob Lazar, what we feel and think about it. I think the biggest story about that right now is I wish we need to figure out what's going on with this element 115 thing. That's where that's going to make or break the story. There's been a ton of information that Tim Doyle has put out, and I've got listeners in my chat room saying that they have put out information also about element 115 a long time ago, that it was actually discovered in the 70s by a German scientist. And why is no one bringing this up? Because Bob Lazar has gotten credit for it. That's where I'm at with this right now. So when the answers come out to that, then I think we can make a bigger decision about element 115. I don't want to, and Bob Lazar's story, I don't want to pass judgment. I'm not going to say he didn't work there. It didn't happen. But I think at least we know where we're at. We know where we're at now, don't we, John? With Bob.
Yes, I think so. At least I hope so anyway.
Where you and I may not agree on two things, and let's get past the boring stuff, because it's too boring when you and I agree. When you just say, yeah, Joe, that's right. Yeah, you're right. I mean, come on. We need to get down to something here. And now I know where we don't agree on things.
Let's rustle in the mud. Let's do it, bro.
Now, one thing is the wisdom, what I call the wisdom teachings, like occult and magic stuff like that. But what I would like to do, and just for my own selfish reasons, is I would like for you to give us a rundown on QAnon and what's going on with that, and why you think it might be one of the biggest psyops ever in history, because that's the impression I'm getting from you.
Well, Joe, I did a video on my YouTube channel, We've Read the Documents, about how QAnon, the plan started in the 90s. Okay, so you have a lot of the same elements that you see within Q today that you've seen back then during the 90s, whether, they're running the same currency evaluation scams. You ever heard of buying Iraqi dinar, Joe, and making money off of that? You ever heard that scam? That's been going around conspiracy culture since, before you and I even thought about even being in it. But have you heard about, currency reevaluation and stuff like that?
No, I don't. That's what I'm saying. I haven't looked into this at all. Me, it's like the Corey Good stuff. When it just don't logically make sense to me, I move away from it.
Well, they were saying that if you bought some Iraqi dinar back during the first Gulf War, that after that it was going to be the currency was going to be reevaluated, so that whatever dinar that you had would be worth actually a lot of money. And they're doing it the same way now with Iraqi dinar again, and Zimbabwe dollars. Okay, and I actually have one Zimbabwe dollar that a friend gave to me as a joke. That's worth $100 trillion. Okay, now according to these people with this currency revaluation in QAnon, it's not all of the QAnoners, just only a select group. It seems to be pushed by Robert David Steele. It seems to be pushed by what's the guy's name? Phil McConnell. Seems to be pushing it, this whole dinar or Zimbabwe dollar thing. So I take my $100 trillion, I'm going to do the math, and They say it's supposed to be worth 35 cents on the dollar. Okay, it's going to be redone. So I will have, if that is the case, I will have $35 billion that I'll be able to spend. Okay, it's just ludicrous. So they're saying that they've been pulling this scam for 30 years. And if you look in the people who were involved with the early movement, whether it's the Dove of Oneness that was pushing this Nasara Gasara currency scam, whether it's J.D. Knight from the Rantham School of Enlightenment, who was pushing these currency scams and the Omega scam and stuff back in the 1990s, allegedly. And now she's jumped on the QAnon bandwagon, and she's a huge QAnon supporter and seems to be really big in the QAnon group, so much so that Jordan Sather actually visited her Rantham School of Enlightenment. It's the same story that all these generals, especially Joseph Dunford being the main one since the 90s, they were going to be the white hats, that they were going to overthrow the government, and they were going to restore order in the Constitution. And nothing's changed when they said Joseph Dunford was going to do it or did it in the 90s, and nothing has changed since today that they are saying that it's going to happen now. You know what I mean? It's there's like no difference. Like it's the same. It's like they've run the same scam since then. And this whole Nasara Gasara, the Global Economic Security Reform Act, the national start with the National Economy Security Reform Act in the 1990s. The guy that wrote the book for Nasara, I have to go back and look for his name. Guess what the title of his book was, actually? The Nasara book. Guess what? It was Dr. Harvey Barnard was the guy. Guess what the name of his book was?
I have no idea.
Draining the Swamp.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's funny. Okay.
So even though Draining the Swamp has been used before then, it did not become popular lexicon really until Trump. So when you see the same players, that they're going the same thing, that there's going to be a government coup, that the white hats and the United States military are going to save us, that it's ran by General Joseph Dunford. They've been saying this since the 90s, and you have the same players like J.D. Knight being involved in it. It really makes you sit back and think, is this just them just running the same scam and people have forgotten about it? You know what I mean?
But this is my point, though. You brought up shills earlier. Like people like Joe Rogan, right? That you believe he's a shill, right? Let me just be very clear here. You believe that he's a shill working with the CIA, that he's in contact with them and works with them,
or U.S. Com, the tip of the spear. Yes, I do believe that he is complicit in it. Yes.
Okay. So if you take my point is this whole QAnon thing, right? It's obviously a psyop to me. It's obviously something to get people stirred up so they'll talk about it and create a whole bunch of noise and cultish type mentality around it. And then anytime that happens, you're going to have evangelists that come out. So to me, that'd almost be like saying that, and maybe it's an unfair comparison, I'm sure it is, that Jordan Sather is working with the CIA when he's just really an effect of the message, though.
Now, what I say about the difference between Sather and Rogan is much larger, okay? Much larger. But we look at who was under the QAnon umbrella, okay? You have Michael Flynn. Michael Flynn's pushing it, okay?
Isn't John B. Wells still pushing it?
Yes, he is. And John B. Wells has connections to the Council for National Policy, and so does Michael Flynn. It seems the CNP is who's running QAnon, okay? They're running this scam.
I'd like to talk to John B. Wells, by the way, about that. I'd like to get him on the program. I've tried before.
If you could, please. I would love you to. I nothing would make me happier. But you had Jerome Corsi and Alex Jones, both CNP members. They were talking about it for the longest time too, as well. So this seems to be the QAnon seems to be a CNP op, and you have it's compartmentalized. You have layers to it. I think Corey Goode is above Jordan Sather. Now, whether or not is Jordan Sather working with the CIA, I don't know. Is it more likely that David Wilcox is, because he's above Sather or Goode? Yes. Is it more likely that, Michael Flynn or John B. Wells is above him? Yes. I don't know who's at the top. If anybody tells you who's at the top, who's running Q, as far as it being a CMP front, I have no answer to that. Mm-hmm. But I will say that there's a big difference between calling Jordan Sather working for the CIA openly or praying medic. Let's say praying medic, for example. Then Joe Rogan, who's got the biggest, one of the biggest talk show podcasts on the globe. You can't there is another false equivalence.
All right, so I see what you're saying. So your point is that because he's got so much effect and he's got a massive audience, that he can't be just the effect of a media ripple, right? He has to be talking with the CIA just because he has that many people.
Now, you could make the argument that they came and gave him the tap on the shoulder and he wasn't always a part of it. And I'd go, okay, I can see that argument. But to say that he's not a part of it now, I can't buy that, Joe. I just can't.
Only because he's got a large audience? Is that the only reason?
And the people that he surrounds himself to as well, being very chummy with Terrence McKenna. I just think that
I get what you're saying.
Running this whole DMT cult that Alex Jones actually rigged on him about, and I don't know, man. It gives a sour taste in my mouth. Am I wrong to? I mean, there's been people. I wish I had the documents in front of me so that I could give you more accurate, concrete things, and I will write up a dossier on Joe Rogan eventually. I will get to it. I know actually more about the crimes of Jordan B. Peterson than I do Joe Rogan, as far as actually being able to quote him offhand.
Well, that would be great, because to be honest with you, I've been a Rogan fan since day one. But here lately, and I think a lot of people will agree with me, is that he's disappointed me. And he's disappointed me in the bias he has towards certain things. But, he always explains these things based on his experience. And I don't want to be too vague. But when I first started listening to his show, a lot of other people would agree with me that he was very open-minded.
Yes.
Right? He would talk about any and every subject with anyone. A lot of the same friends he has would come on. Now those people come on maybe once or twice a year. And it's all about, it does seem, that it doesn't mean it's true, but I'm just telling you what I feel about it. It does seem like he's definitely 100% for the technocracy, the transhuman agenda, anything technologically based. And he talks about subjects that have to do with social media and Bitcoin and stuff like that, where he's not really diving deep. Like, he admitted it today. Like, today he kind of redeemed himself to me, because he said the two biggest questions in life are, and the whole reason why I have the show is, what happens after we die, and are we alone? He's not wrong about that. Those are the two biggest questions.
But it's not what he tells you, Joe. It's what he doesn't tell you.
It's not what he's talking about anymore.
And it's same with Alex Jones. It's not what Alex Jones tells you. It's what Alex Jones doesn't tell you. Josh Reese has been saying that for years, and I 100% agree with him on that. I mean, how many times does Eddie Bravo say what you want to say about Eddie Bravo, whether or not, he's there purposely to say the craziest things to make people like you and I look like we're fools? However, Joe Rogan, anytime Eddie Bravo actually gets to something that's important when it comes to conspiracies, Joe Rogan immediately interrupts him. And Eddie Bravo loses his trains of thought and is not able to get out what he's want to talk about.
Yeah, that does drive me a little crazy, because I love Eddie Bravo, man. But in all fairness, Eddie Bravo is one of those, like, everything is fake conspiracy guys.
I know, but doesn't Joe discount 9/11 now? Doesn't Alex Jones just say it's the Saudi hijackers that did 9/11, and that our government has nothing to do with it, and that foreign intelligence, whether it's the Mossad, whether it's any country within the Five Eyes, having anything to do with 9/11? To Alex Jones, because of CMP David Horowitz, who he had on his channel. Now Alex Jones just believes it's the Saudi Arabian hijackers. Now, doesn't that blow your mind, Joe?
It does. And you know what even blows my mind more is that I'm using a Friday night, and I know why nobody's calling in, to talk about Joe Rogan, I'm really trying to talk about a couple of things here. Bob Lazar's case, and what I think is the biggest arrow in this whole thing, like the biggest weight in this case is element 115, the actual facts about it and why they're dodging it so much. That gets brushed under the rug, and that's probably is going to be the deciding factor on this whole thing, I think. And number two, the mentality behind the community right now. And I don't like to I used to be a part of radio shows that did that. Like every other day, it was like, what do you think about the UFO community? What do you think about the state of things? And I'm like, God, can we talk about something else? But right now it's pretty important, because whether people realize it or not, Bob Lazar just went on the biggest platform possible to tell the story. And when it was over, you could definitely see Rogan was leaning towards believing his story, right? You could see it.
And hopefully people will look into Area 51 and not trust the government. There's some positive that comes out of it, right?
Yeah, sure. There is. But I want to, I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm betting, because I don't have time for research like I used to anymore. I depend on my colleagues for this, like you. That's why I've surrounded myself with people I trust. Because, I mean, if I'm not producing shows and I'm trying to get ready for this one, I can't even read anymore, man. I don't even have time to go on YouTube binges. So I have to really be careful who I trust and really understand. In other words, I'm just saying I trust you, right? I'm glad that you're doing this research, and I want you to stay on CNP. If I was being ultimately selfish, I would love you to stay on that topic, right? But
I probably will for, I don't know when. There's too much stuff to, it's been a long time since Josh Reeves has put out, he's done shows talking about modern CNP stuff. But as far as actually, he needs to put out the third version of The Secret Right, for the Ultimate Collection, he needs to do that after he's done with Spellcasters 2. There's a lot more information since he's put out the first two movies,
Where are we on the occult and magic, though? Where are you and I going to find some agreement in this one? Because I've already got the emails, man. I've got them. I can share them with all of you right now. I've got people saying that there's some website where I'm in the top 200 of, what is it, like fake or shill shows where people think I'm working with the CIA. I've got...
but they say that about everybody, though. And sometimes you think that the CIA puts that information out to make everybody look like they're shills. It could be that, too.
Well, they grouped me with every conspiracy podcast on the known planet. There's like a list of 200, and I'm not a conspiracy podcast, right? So, but the occult, I think there's a lot of bias there, man. There's a lot of, and I've always thought that, even when I listen to Josh Reeves' stuff, there's always this idea that because this wisdom is secret knowledge or knowledge that people have been trying to learn since the beginning of time, that it's been held by some cabal for purposes that you're not going to know about, and that it's like the ultimate Ponzi scheme to bait you in because they have the ultimate secret to make you a part of the cult. And that's the mentality behind it. But when you really look at it, and when I say look at the occult and magic and things like that, I don't mean just study it and read books. I mean, this is one of the first things that actually came out in my life that I could actually put to the test. Now, I grew up Christian, so you understand how big of a deal that was to me, right?
Well, I grew up Christian, too, and I'm still a Christian to this day.
So you understand how scary that was for me in the beginning. How hard it was for me to step over that line and actually try something that I've been forbidden to do since I was a kid, to see if there was something there.
Now, Joe, let me ask you a question.
Okay.
Let's define our stances. Okay. Now, I used to be a Gnostic Christian about a year ago. Okay.
You got to fix that chair, by the way. You need some WD-40 or something.
I do need to get some. I'm not a Gnostic Christian anymore. I'm a conventional Christian, and I'll get to more about why that is now. I've changed. How do you feel about Theosophy? Madame Blavatsky, Albert Pike,
I think
Manly V. Hall.
How do I feel about it? I think there's some great knowledge and great wisdom there, but they're defining terms that, when they talk about things like the seventh ray, they're just putting names to things because they don't understand it. I honestly think that Madame Blavatsky was a genuine seeker of knowledge. And don't get me wrong. I mean, she got caught fooling people once or twice, but she ran into some knowledge, had some experiences with it, and created this cult of theosophy. And now you've got, oh my God, I mean, when you look into some of the websites about it, it's pretty freaky, right? I forget the name of the group. You probably know the name of the group that's in Europe and all over the place. It's the Luciferian Trust or whatever.
Lucius Trust. Lucius Trust.
The Lucius Trust.
Called the Lucifer Trust.
That does scare me. And when I look into what they're talking about, it's almost like they're taking what Blavatsky was talking about and making it their own thing and trying to make some type of socialist, spiritual governing movement with it. I mean, it's in governments. It's in it. If there is a grand conspiracy or a cabal or a new world order, this could possibly it. But I don't know enough about theosophy or the Lucius Trust to make that accusation.
See, that's why I would suggest that you follow through, you do the work. I'm going to use your terminology. Do the work.
Let me finish.
Okay.
Blavatsky, I think, is highly misrepresented.
I disagree
highly
with you
misrepresented.
on that. I disagree with you on that because of what her work became and where it came from. And this is where you and I are going to disagree. I, again, used to be Gnostic. I used to, I've read all the Gnostic texts. I believed a lot in the work of the Nag Hammadi Library, and I believed a lot in the work of Elaine Pagels. Until I found out that something that did not make any sense with me, and I cannot disregard it, was that the Rockefeller family both funded the Nag Hammadi Library as well as funded Elaine Pagels' work, and she's won many Rockefeller awards.
Okay.
Once I realized that, I was like, well, then maybe they're trying to control. Maybe the information's true and they're just trying to control it. Okay, Joe? Maybe it's just that. Maybe it's that.
Maybe.
But then I started listening to Michael Joseph's Occult Catholic series. And I started listening to
are these
Jay
YouTube
Dyer.
channels or
Jay Dyer some. Yes, they're YouTube channels, but the thing about Michael Joseph is he would give an outline that you could see on his channel of what he's talking about, as well as sources and links and books and everything in the notes. Okay?
All right.
So everything he was doing is what I'm kind of doing on my channel. So I started tracing back his sources, and I was like, whoa, wait a minute here. Wait a minute. Like, you know how Josh Reeves looks at theosophy and how Josh Reeves looks at masonry. And I usually technically agreed with him. Like, I always had a preconceived feeling that Madame Blavatsky, Albert Pike, not so much Manly P. Hall, and it's even still not so much Manly P. Hall today, that they were not for us. They were not our people. They were not giving us the truth. Even when I was a Gnostic Christian, I still had that, I don't know, just like the innate feeling in my gut.
Let's talk about why, right? And I can name one reason why you might think that. I found a text, and I forget the name of the book, where Manly P. Hall says that eventually all of mankind will realize that Islam and the Quran is the ultimate truth. You believe that? I could not believe it when I read it. I'll have to find it.
I believe it based off of all my research, yeah.
And so, not to mention, in his book, What the Ancient Wisdom Expects from Its Disciples. Now, keep in mind that Bill Cooper talked about how aliens were, he said it, man, like ETs were using things like magic and the occult to deceive and control mankind. It's a famous quote by him.
Mm-hmm.
Manly P. Hall, who a lot of people, they reference him in his works that he released, What the Ancient Wisdom Expects from Its Disciples, which was read by Josh Reeves for one of the first times,
yes, it was.
And open in public, admitted that there were beings controlling the mystery schools that are controlling the destiny of man. Now, whether those beings are internal beings in the interdimensional realms or astral realm, or whether they're space aliens, who knows the reference. But if you read that over and over again, like I have, you'll see that he's not being metaphorical there. He's not being metaphorical in most of it. He's actually revealing a lot of the secrets, but he's also revealing a lot of the secrets that are hidden in religion too. You do realize that?
I do, yes, but I think it's slanted. Just like, okay, so what about, okay, so you're, I'm pretty sure you're well aware of the Black Sun, right? Oh, Himmler. Yeah. Okay. They use a lot of theosophical teachings as far as the root races, as far as Madame Blavatsky. Now, you could say that they corrupted it, fine, whatever. But I do think that's naturally what it was. I don't think they corrupted it. I think they took what she was trying to get across, what Albert Pike was trying to get across. I think they took it to its full potential. The potential of the Lucifer Trust. And
okay. So we're talking about a Luciferian agenda, pretty much Bill Cooper.
If you want to call it that, yes. Satan, Yabadioth, the Abyss Dweller, whatever you want to call it. Okay? And because of that, like you said, it wasn't that Blavatsky or Pike, came up with this information on their own. They got a lot of it from the ancient mystery schools. And I'm just saying that there's a good side to it and there's a bad side to it.
I'll agree with that.
So when all of them go around and they're all teaching Christ consciousness, okay, and you still see it taught today, all right, that Christ didn't die on the cross. And you and I have talked about this.
Yeah, but I want to talk about it openly, right? So, okay. So is that okay with you?
I don't care. Go ahead.
Yeah, so, there's two frames of thought here. Like I've had Gordon White, and he says, Christianity is a beautiful thing. If you look at it mythologically and metaphorically, it's actually a beautiful thing, and it works. But he doesn't really partake in the literal history of the Bible. He doesn't look at the Bible and things like that as literal history. Now, I had Dr. Hugh Ross on, right, to yes. talk about that. That didn't quite go exactly where I wanted it to go. But
I still thought it was a good interview, though.
Yeah, there's some other people I want to talk to about this. But either way, I get that. But this is, to me, it's polarity. It's like the ultimate form of polarity. And then there's people that only believe in the literal versions of the Bible and salvation, stuff like that. And they don't see the metaphors and all the things that Blavatsky and Manly P. Hall and all of the Kabbalists and all these people that were showing you that was deeply hidden inside the Bible. So they think all that stuff is hearsay, hogwash, BS, right? What I believe is it's both. I believe the word is a living metaphor. It's alive, the logos, which is a more Christian mystical type of deal. But it involves
not always. John looked at it that way. The Apostle John of Patmos did.
Yeah, but we're quoting the Bible again. And see, this is where I get into toss-ups about this. Something, by the way, Art Bell would never do. He'd never have this discussion. Not on the radio. Never. But anyways, when people use that book for the ultimate reference to everything, I think they're just as lost as the people they're accusing of being lost.
But have you ever heard? I'm not using that as that, though. I mean, I do believe that there have been parts of the Bible that have been changed. There's been interpolation.
Interpretation.
There's been no interpolation.
Interpolation, is that a real word?
Yeah, interpolation. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. It's probably interpolation. But there have been certain parts, like, pick up your cross, that were added later that were necessarily in. It's just it. But then again, I say this that I don't think.
Don't worry about what people think. If you can just pretend like it's you and me talking, we'll really get somewhere with this, I think.
I believe, and I've always said this, and you and I have talked about it, the dividing line between people, the dividing line between people like me, Michael Joseph, Jesse Spots, you, Joe, and Madame Blavatsky, Gordon White, who, this is separate, you don't have to say this, but I'm going to say I believe is the modern day Aleister Crowley.
Mm-hmm.
Albert Pike, Manly P. Hall, Benjamin Krim, is that I believe that Christ, Jesus, Yeshua, lived on this earth and died on the cross. Now, granted, are there great stories of words of wisdom that are told in the Bible that are allegories? Yes. But that I believe is different, and that I believe is true. And that's what separates, that's the grand schism that separates the two trains of thought.
I don't know what, see, this is where I'm trying to figure out, how do you think that separates the trains of my train of thought? Because
not necessarily your train of thought, but there's a difference between someone who, like Gordon White, who would say that's not the case, that didn't happen, or Joe Outwill, Christ consciousness,
Right. Yeah.
And then people like me that say the Holy Spirit exists. Yes, of course it does. But nonetheless, Jesus, Yeshua was the Son of God. And, he died. So
that's your faith, though.
Yes, that is. But I also believe it is an objective truth to me. And you could say, well, John, you used to be a Gnostic Christian. How can it be objective truth to you now? And I'm saying it's because I started, reading the New American Standard Bible. I started reading the Catholic Apocrypha. I started going to a church that a friend of mine, it's his house church, that he is
what's a house
pastor.
Church?
The church at a house.
His house? Okay.
I still don't trust mainline Christian religion at all. At the Catholic Church, the Baptist Church, Presbyterian, doesn't matter. Mormons.
Well, nobody's going to put you in the category. Like, we're not going to do that. I'm not going to put you in a category of a mainstream fundamentalist at all. I don't think that's you at all. But when I bring up magic, let me ask you this: when I say the word magic and occult, what's the first thing that pops into your head?
Occult means hidden. Magic just means will.
Okay. Are there not bad things to you?
They can be bad. They're not necessarily bad.
All right. So
they can be good.
Well, so good. Well, by the way, I'm not, if whoever's wondering, I'm not getting these letters from John. I've already had letters from people saying that I'm pushing a satanic agenda already. So yeah, I think.
Now, I myself don't practice magic, in my opinion, Joe.
I understand.
But some people could say prayer and intention and will is magic, that I am whether I know it or not.
Well, I had a discussion last night with Ramsey Dukes about that, because I used to say the same thing. Everybody's practicing magic all their life. Well, in a way they are, right? But you hear that a lot. But they're not they're not magic practitioners. They're not magicians, right? And so a magician is willing to step outside the religious box and actually try some of this stuff. And when I say this stuff, we're talking about things that are forbidden in books like Leviticus and Numbers and stuff. But you got to take into consideration the Old Testament isn't really Christianity, first and foremost.
That's true. And you also have to take into account that the Jewish population at that time kept worshiping gods that probably should not be worshipped, and magic would play a role into subjecting them. It's that specific culture at that specific time.
I think, and one day I might find out I'm wrong, but I think that the ultimate psyop on this planet, the ultimate trickery, is to tell people that all of these things are evil and that you shouldn't look into them. And God forbid you practice any of it to figure it out for yourself. Because, well,
remember, Joe, Catholicism didn't really do that at first. They separated the wheat from the chaff. It was Protestantism, which has a lot of theology.
Well, that's what that's what I was raised in, was Protestantism. Yeah. I don't know nothing about Catholics.
So Protestantism, which later became Theosophy, kind of like the revolutionary spirit. The mystery schools, there's 66 books of the Protestant Bible, which may have been spearheaded in its foundation by Sir Francis Bacon, who was a known Illuminist. That, because of that, that as a Protestant, I was raised in a Presbyterian church, and it's all bad. It's all bad.
I get that. I mean, we all get that. This is stuff that everybody knows, right? But
there's a lot of people who don't know this.
What I'm trying what I'm saying is if they're listening to this show, they're not going to listen very long. But most of the people that listen to this show know these things, right? They know all that stuff. And nobody's judging you. Nobody's judging me. And if they are, who cares? But what I want to know is why there's such a bias against it. Because everybody, even the people that call themselves mystics, there's a bias against it, right? There's a bias against magic. There's a bias against astrology, the tarot, the Kabbalah.
But is there? That's the thing is there?
Absolutely.
The thing is, I used to think like you. I used to think that. But look how much it is in the New Age culture. Look how much it's pushed. Look how much money is involved into it. I used to think that it was something that was always hidden, that they always stamped down, that they always clamped down on it and push it into a box and throw it in a corner. But I would actually argue to you that some things that are more truthful of, the real true conspiracies. We're talking about the Franklin cover-up and scandal. We're talking about, the octopus of Danny Casolaro.
Where you going with this?
Talking about the New Age movement and the human potential movement has always been put forth by the collective, by the world order. It's nothing. It's
all right. So let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. If Rockefeller, you brought up Rockefeller earlier, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If Rockefeller put a whole bunch of money into solar power, would you stop using solar panels?
It'd make me consider stop using solar power.
Why?
Because there has to be something wrong with it.
Why? Just because some big guy with money who's mysterious and super filthy rich?
It's not just Rockefeller. When it came to be, with Gnosticism, it's the whole grand narrative, okay? I think the Catholic Church started with good intentions with Peter, and they got a little co-opted through each stage, whether it's Paul, Constantine, the Gnostic influence, and then later the schism between Orthodox, then Protestantism, which, Martin Luther originally set out to reform the Catholic Church, but he didn't. Instead, he split Christianity into, instead of two groups, into thousands of groups. What's the easiest way to destroy it? It's just to scatter it. And that's what happened with Martin Luther. Now anybody can have a church.
Well, why could you? Yeah, I know, I understand that, but why would you move totally away from the Gnostic text? Do you think the Nag Hammadi library, let's say, for example, like the Book of Thomas?
But I didn't say all of it. I enjoy the Gospel of Thomas.
Okay, all right. And so, if the Gospel of Thomas,
I enjoy the revelation of the revelation of Peter, which was considered to be a holy book in the Bible and in some canonical Bibles, or initially in the early Catholic Church.
The word Bible, I think it's funny that the word Bible makes some people cringe, right?
Or the wisdom of Solomon. I love the wisdom of Solomon.
Okay, all right, I get that. But what I'm trying to make my point is that the Gospel of Thomas historically, if you believe, and I know you might discredit their dating, but the Gospel of Thomas historically is the oldest referenced book when it comes to these texts. It's older than the Gospels that are in the New Testament.
I agree with you, but however, I'd actually argue you that the wisdom of Solomon is, as far as you're talking about the first basis of the New Testament.
Well, that's fine. I mean, that goes right along with it.
Because the wisdom of Solomon, talked about Christ. And it was in if you believe the actual dating for it before Christ.
My whole question is about magic and the occult. It's not about which book is what and all this stuff, right? So the magic, these books talk about hidden powers that are in humans. Period.
And it talks about how it can corrupt majority of the time when not harnessed properly, like Solomon, for example.
Yeah, but there's been no proof that guy ever existed. There's no dates. There's no lineage. There's
True.
nothing.
But even if it's an allegory, you know that it can corrupt.
Sure.
Not always, but it can.
Yeah. Well, so could $1 million depending on what you do with it. But
that is true.
But when it comes to these type of things, I think the fact that so many people are afraid to touch it, especially Christians, they're afraid to touch it because they think that the mentality that I can't get over that these people have, and I'll just say it, is that they always feel like somebody's going to dupe them or they're going to be sucked into something that they shouldn't have messed with.
But they get duped by counterfinancial policy all the time and Q and everything in the conspiracy
Right, that's
culture.
my point. And so when you have these deep discussions about religion and magic and the occult and why one doesn't like the other and stuff, well, there's a lot of occultists that won't even consider Christianity because it's too fundamental to them and they think it's just the same. But there's a lot of Christians that won't look into this because they've been taught, and I'm telling you, it's a program. They've been taught since they were little that the person that loves them more than their own parents is going to kill them and torture them for eternity. It's been programmed, not told, not typed on a piece of paper and say, look at this. It's been beat into their head. So it's in their subconscious.
I agree. And a lot of that came from Protestantism, and you got to realize Blavatsky and Pike, they loved Protestantism. They hated the Catholic Church. It was Yabba-die-off.
Are you Catholic? Is that what it is?
No, I'm not Catholic at all. No, I'm not. But I would say that again, we're looking at, what did Bill Cooper originally call the early Christians, the friendly society? The Christians themselves called themselves the Way in the New Testament.
Surely it wasn't the Calvinists. Calvinists was totally opposite.
No, I go to a non-denominational. I don't label myself anything at all, and I never was Catholic. I mean, I was baptized Catholic because my mom was a Catholic when I was like 6.
I'm just trying to see the point as to why
you're trying to see my angle is what it is.
Yeah, you got some angle against magic. I know you do. I'm trying to find it.
I don't have any angle against magic. Did I ever? I don't practice not because I'm afraid of it. I just don't care.
Really?
Does that rub you the wrong way?
No, it doesn't rub me the wrong way. But let's get down to brass tacks here. And I'm going to bring up something that's as a touchy subject to you. Because I know you're a good person and you got a heart, right?
Try to. We're all human.
No, you got a heart. You do. You have one of the worst things in life happen to you, dude. One of the worst things. I can't imagine losing my kid. There are days that I think about it that it brings me to tears. Nobody should ever have to live through what you lived through.
Yeah.
All right. But what if, and it's a big what if, and I'm really not trying to piss you off here, but what if back then you did know something that could have saved that whole thing that wasn't science? It wasn't faith. It was ultimate. It was just a fundamental law of the universe that's been hidden from us that you could have used to change that situation. Would you have done it?
It's not up to me.
You say that, right? And I figured you would say that.
Because if will trumps logos, if my will, because remember, we're made in God's image, we're not God, and I don't want to be God because that's exactly what they teach you to be.
Okay, so now we're down to it. I had to ask a tough question to get down to it, right? So
it isn't up to me, Joe, and I wouldn't want it to be up to me.
What's the difference between me and my son?
That's your decision. That's not mine.
No, I'm saying, choice. Like, what's the difference between me and my son, really? Like, if my son wants to be an astronaut, don't I want him to be an astronaut too?
Yes, but you also it'd be like if my son wanted to be a CIA agent.
Well, if my son wanted
him to be a CIA, when I try to steer him away from that, but I can't control my son fully, can I?
Sure,
And
I get what you're saying. I'm not kind of trying to control them, but we're talking about will here.
We are. I believe in universal truth and
We're
logos.
not talking about
My
this.
will cannot super. Your will cannot super. You okay? For example, this. Your will can't even supersede your own father. Your own father probably had ideas of how your life was going to go. Good or
but
bad.
forget him. He's an asshole, right?
I know, but still, the same with my father. Okay,
But what I'm talking, it doesn't matter though. Regardless if he's an asshole or not. My point is will is different than desire. It's different than rebellion. And see, you have to actually study these books. I mean, really, like you're trying to get, like you're telling me a while ago, you need to look into the QAnon stuff. It's more about interest, but you have to
I can understand what you're saying. That will
understand what divine will actually is. Divine will isn't desire. It isn't selfishness.
But what if it wasn't up to me? We all have to be born to die, Joe. I don't want to live in a transhumanist agenda where I live the rest of my life in an android. You know, even if would I love to have Abel here? Of course, I would.
I know you would.
But it's not up to me. And even if it was up to me, I don't even know what ripple effect could that cause? Let's say I did have the willpower to change humanity, even if something as much as I would love to have my son back. I don't know what that could have caused negatively or positively. I don't know. I don't want to be the one to make that decision.
And see, this is where I think people get there's an inherent program that runs in every one of us that have been raised up in these type of conditions, that have been raised up and taught these things. It tells us that we're something less than what the universe actually is and what created it. Now, granted, we're much smaller. We're not even fleas. We're much smaller. But this idea that we're something less is the idea that corrupts everything.
I'm not saying we're less. I'm saying I don't want it. You ever seen the movie Bruce Almighty?
I understand you don't want it.
I don't want it, Joe. I don't want it.
But ever since your son passed away, you've been doing nothing but helping people fix their health issues. You've been doing nothing but going out and really getting down to the real research, correcting doctors and even on this stuff, finding out what's really the cause and the cure to diseases that have been plaguing people, that the pharmaceutical companies and all these other people still, they're not doing anything about. And you're 100% passionate about it.
Yeah.
How is that not your will? Are you saying that God is doing that, not you?
There's still been people that I've failed. If it was my will, everybody would have been healed. It's not. I can't, if I fire a gun at you, if you believe in this whole will theory that the Theosophists push so much, then let me fire a gun at you, Joe. I promise you won't, because your will ain't going to be able to stop the bullet.
Well, I don't know.
Anybody will ever take that bet.
I don't know what Theosophy books you've been reading, but they don't talk about dodging bullets.
Well, they're not talking about dodge a bullet, but it's the whole concept of using a person's will to manipulate the universe, that they are their own personal God, their own personal Jesus. We can't completely manipulate the universe. There is something above us controlling this whole thing. That's what I'm getting at. Okay. So, yes, there have been people I have healed using my will.
That's a funny word, though. Everyone. That's a funny word that you're saying there, manipulate. Why do you have to manipulate to work with something that's already a natural law? That's not manipulation. That's just understanding and working with it.
I guess you're right about that. I guess that is correct. But there's some things that we can't ever... Other people have will, right?
Everybody's got a will.
Exactly. So you guess you could say, so what keeps me from being able to heal everyone? Why can't I be Dr. House and get it right and everything's wrapped up? And I'm not saying there's plenty people that I've helped. But what's gonna keep me from
I can tell you if you really want me to tell you.
It's not a lack of belief because it's go ahead. Say what you're saying.
I understand what you're saying, right? But You're a Christian. You should know the answer to that question.
Well, I know the answer to that question because my will can't supersede God's will.
Yeah, but see, here's the thing. Here's
the will of the universe. Whatever you want to call it.
It's a mentality. It's like they pay attention to some teachings, but not all of them. Right?
If you're going to give me the same spill that some conservative Christians gave me, that my faith wasn't great enough.
No, that ain't it.
Okay, then go ahead.
Your faith is, I'm sure you have plenty of faith in God. I don't doubt it, that God exists, that Jesus was here and all the whole spill. But what he taught people was who we are. Who we are. His whole message was about the kingdom of heaven, who we are,
Yes,
all this stuff. You will do what I've done and more. Now let's think about the things that he did. Raised people from the dead, came back from the dead. Healed the blind, healed the sick. If you ask that same question to the person that you believe in, the person that you follow, can you heal everybody? I believe he could. Do you believe he could? And if
I believe
he
could. I believe that I can't. And hold on, I'll get you.
So if that's the case, then why don't you believe him when he tells you that you will do more? Think about that. More than what he did, but he had to go. So he's telling you that you can do everything he did and more. You don't believe that part?
Yeah, okay. You got me there.
The reason why we're the biggest conspiracy on the planet, and I believe that, is the watered down message of the Christ message. It got extremely watered down. The Gnostic texts probably aren't even touching some of the real actual accounts of what happened, I think. And to get in this whole idea of sin and redemption, because inertly the cause of that, or actually the effect of that cause, is called shame, a lack of self-worth. And I'm not saying that you believe that, but that's a subconscious programming that I have, that we all have, that keeps us from having success. It keeps us from happiness. It keeps us from health. It keeps the planet from where we want the planet to be, is a psychological feeling or an implant and a program that we
the reptilian brain, the system.
Yeah, that we do not have power over anything above, physical science or the physical laws of the universe.
Well, you know that I've told the story of Abel and how it was impossible for him to spit the breathing tube out of his mouth. It's scientifically impossible. Right. I believe in miracles. You know that, Joe.
But the thing about I think it's cool is, when it comes to that, he talked about like the mysteries and all this stuff, right? He talked about it was given to his disciples to understand the mysteries. Mm-hmm. And everybody that you talk to, like the real fundamentalists, not you, but they think they understand those mysteries, right? They think they got it figured out.
But they don't. I agree with you 100% on that.
What we don't know, if we believe in the literal version of what happened, is what those mysteries were. What did he really teach them to do? What was he working with? Why did he rub the ground before he made that guy not blind anymore? Why didn't he just say abracadabra? Why did he do some form of crazy ritual? Why did he put his hands in the dirt? He was using living metaphors to heal him. That's magic.
Yeah.
Right? The word, the logos. The word is alive, right? So he was teaching these people. Astrology's been buried. But, if you look in Revelations and you really study like some deep wisdom about the Kabbalah, you'll see that it corresponds to the 12 tribes of Israel, and it corresponds very well. All that stuff has been hidden from us. Now, is there like a group like the Rockefellers and the Lucis Trust and the people that are using the wisdom teachings to manipulate the planet through aliens and stuff? Some of the same. It's like fire, right? You can use fire to burn, or you can use it to cook.
The Prometheus, a Luciferian.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I think you and I agree way more than we disagree, Joe.
I think fear is running too much here. I think fear needs to be put back in check.
I'm not afraid. I just am apathetic. That's the difference.
Yeah, you don't need it. I get that. Yeah, what's the point, right? But I'm glad we came to some type of agreement. I hate that it got so damn deep like that.
No, it's fine, man. I loved it. This is missing. I mean, it's probably turned a lot of people off because people knee jerk when anybody gets into these type of conversations. But
I don't care. I'm talking to you, brother.
It doesn't bother me, man. Anytime you want to talk about this, and we're both growing. I mean, I'm still doing the research. I'm still looking into it. The best I can.
Yeah, and it's like, and there's a verse in Revelations that talks about, and this is what Bill Cooper brought up quite a bit. Babylon, right? The whore of Babylon or whatever. Well, if we use Babylon as a let's just say a metaphor in a nursery rhyme, like Cat in the Hat, what would Babylon symbolize? Like it would symbolize all of those teachings, like the mystery schools and the deeper hidden mysteries that were forbidden, like in the book of Enoch, the mysteries of heaven that they punished the angels for revealing, things like that. That's Babylon. But the text doesn't tell you that Babylon is the bad guy, right? The text says the people that fornicated with the whore of Babylon. Maybe you need some like duct tape and WD-40.
I'll get some. I'll fix it.
But, fornication is what? I mean, we know what fornication is. That is desire. That's all that is. That's lust. And people that use mystery teachings and mystery stuff for lust and power is fornication. It doesn't mean it's bad. It's just you're using it for the wrong reasons. It's kind of like, I hate to use this reference, but like Star Wars, you got the Sith Lords and stuff that they use it for power and control, and they're definitely fornicating with it. And then you've got the Jedi, and the Jedi were taught what? God, I sound like such a nerd, but they weren't taught to stay away from black magic. They were taught to understand the dark side, to do the shadow work.
Well, that's why
that it was always going to be a part of them.
I don't do the work, but I research the occult so I can hopefully understand. Not that, okay, occult's a wrong word because occult just means hidden. Like ritual satanic abuse.
Oh, hell yeah, that's terrible stuff, man. Yeah.
I mean, it's horrible stuff.
But
it happens.
But there's a lot of people out there that will take those types of things
and run with it.
And put that, and can just put that right along in with the Catholic Church or the Lucis Trust or Theosophy. It's almost like we're always throwing out the baby with the bathwater. It's like saying fire is bad and whoever messes with it is evil. That's the way I look at it.
Just like the love of money is the root of all evil, but not money in and of itself.
Yeah, money's just money. That's the whole thing. Like, what should we do with Caesar's coin? He said, give. He thought about it for a second, and he said, well, just give Caesar what's Caesar's. It's not good or bad. It's just Caesar's.
Well, Joe Otwell just says that's the Roman Republic just try to get people to give their money out.
Right. Yeah, and that's what we're doing today. We haven't learned, and I think that's what's wrong with our society. I think it's the biggest con. I do think people are using the mystery teachings for bad things, like you're talking about.
Well, even Josh Reeves will agree with you on that. I mean, I agree with you too, Joe.
But 100%. I don't think they're all bad. I don't think every club and every organization is bad. I think what happens is when people become a part of a club or an organization, they got two programs running in their head. One, this club's going to dupe me, and that's what clubs are. They're cults. Or two, hey, I'm glad to have some fellowship because I was just doing this stuff on my own. It's good to be around people that think like I do. Right?
So would you agree with me that maybe the larger the organization, the larger the group, the more, you have certain names within the CFR or CMP in a certain group, the more likely that they're going to be probably causing an issue, like the Knights of Malta, for example?
The Knights of Malta, yeah, see, there are groups. I mean, I just talked about it a while ago. We don't have to get as far as like into the Knights of Malta, but everybody always looks at, the Templars as the ultimate saviors, and they were actually good people. Well, they were good people, but, they might have got corrupted by power. And that might have been what pissed off the Catholic Church. Just like in Masonry, we got these people over here at the Grand Lodge of Arkansas who can't even hold to the beliefs that they were taught in their own books for reasons of money, power, greed, and racism. You know? But it doesn't make the teachings wrong. It doesn't make the people that are in the organizations wrong. You got good and bad people in everything, including magic.
Well, ask yourselves this again: why would Blavatsky love Protestantism when you and I both grew up in Protestant households? And Protestantism, and I'm not a Catholic, but I'm just saying, if you're going to have one church, splitting it up into a million pieces is going to cause some damage. And I'm not saying the Catholic Church is innocent by any shape or imagination. It's not. I've talked about it since Paul had started, the corruption started. It's degrees of corruption. It finished with Vatican II. I guess you could actually say it finished with the newest Jesuit Pope, but Pope Francis. But still, nonetheless, look at how much they loved how the church just got destroyed, Joe. And if you're looking at it from a basis that the church started the group of the apostles after Yeshua's death, started with the purest intentions, they're laughing at that. Doesn't that not sit well with you? Or am I wrong?
Well, no, it don't sit well with me. But I don't, it's kind of, again, I go back to the fire good or fire bad thing. I don't take understandings, laws, and teachings and judge them because of the people that don't know how to use them. I can't.
Yeah, but these are the
people.
But these are the people that people hold up. Blavatsky, Pike, and then also look what came of them too is the whole psychology revolution with Freud, Jung, Wilhelm Reich, the atrocities that each one were doing. Some worse than the others, especially Wilhelm Reich.
Oh man, we'll have to have another discussion on that. You think Carl Jung was giving people bad information and ruining people?
Carl Jung,
before you say the bad things that he did, you think his teachings, not what he did, not he watched porn or he slept with somebody, but the teachings that he was teaching were bad things.
Jung, some of his Jungian analytical psychology, I have a very good friend who's one of the foremost experts in it, C.S. Joseph. No. However, I do think Reich, yes, all of it was corrupted. And we will talk about that. I've actually read majority of Reich's books. I'm still reading them. And man, once you start reading Reich, you're like, boy, this man was all this. Because, in the conspiracy culture, everybody loves Wilhelm Reich and orgone energy. Everything. It's the best ever,
Yeah.
I can't discuss. We can discuss it off the air. I just can't discuss it on air because we're on radio right now. I can't say the stuff that, even politely, the stuff that Wilhelm Reich was involved with or the stuff that he did. It's too lewd. But if you want to go read his own biography, if you want to go read his own books, then by all means go ahead and do it. He was a deeply disturbed individual. Now, Jung, on the other hand, Carl Jung, he was a CIA agent. That's true. You can look it up during the OSS. I guess not the CIA, he was OSS.
Yeah, but we're talking about people's. We're talking about people's works, not what they taught.
Jungian analytical psychology can be used for good, like my friend C.S. Joseph, or it could be used for evil. It's just like the fire metaphor you gave earlier.
Yeah, what is that in the background? Is that a train or what is that?
I have no idea. I don't hear anything. You hearing something weird?
Yeah, that sounds like a garage door or something. But you brought we got to roll out of here anyways because Ryan's show's coming up. But think about this. Like my whole point is you brought up the books of Solomon earlier, okay? And Wisdom of Solomon, the Song of Solomon. Everybody knows one was about the demons that he encased in a brass vessel, and the other one's about his ventures as a magician, right? So if you look at it, what happened to him? He learned some really cool stuff. He learned about magic. He learned about symbols and how to use them to conquer demons and stuff. But he was still corrupted in the end. But he corrupted himself by his own desires, not his will, not God's will for him, but his own desire. It was over a woman, right? So the moral of that story isn't don't do magic, don't mess with demons, don't use magic rings. It's when men get a hold of this stuff, a lot of times they don't know how to handle it. They get corrupt and they get full of lust, and it ends up destroying them. And then that's pretty much like Crowley's story and a lot of other people's story that gets involved with it.
Yeah, Joe, I can see that to some degree, but then again, if we're going on basing on who was evil, who was our typical Antichrist, I always say that Crowley was more of a hedonist. L. Ron Hubbard is your guy.
Yeah.
That is way worse than Crowley ever was on a good day.
Yeah, he
not
just
to say that I respect Crowley, because I do not in the slightest bit, but Hubbard was worse.
Yeah. Well, I think we got to some understanding. And look, I don't care how many people it pissed off or how touchy of a subject it was, because look, I'm here to learn about the mysteries, man. That's the stuff that interests me the most, and that's what this show is about. And the audience that listens to the show, they care about that stuff too, and I know they do. And I
enjoy researching it too as well, man. You might have a different way of looking at it, but don't get me wrong, it fascinates me too.
If I wanted to do a show and become a millionaire, then I'd be like Howard Stern. I'd talk about pop culture and everything under the sun, and not touch certain subjects or be completely safe. And but I just don't think we can get to answers that way. But it's been fun, and it's been a blast. About to do it again sometime, brother.
Thank you, Joe. Anytime, brother. Had a great time on Lighting the Void as always.
And we got to roll out of here.
To power.
Yeah, exactly. We got to roll out of here. Some of the references we talked about tonight, I want you guys to go check out if you care about these things with the Bob Lazar and stuff. Please go check out Tim Doyle's work at UFO Seekers. He's done some pretty good research about Element 115. Go check out Josh Reeves's channel on YouTube. He's been doing this kind of work since, the late 90s possibly. And then go check out John's website at fixyourgut.com. And what's your name of your YouTube channel, real quick?
We've read the documents. Just search We've read the documents and the Council for National Policy or Jeffrey Epstein, and it should come up.
Right on. And don't forget that this show was produced by the Fringe FM. You can't copy it without written permission. The main music was by Chronox. Other music was by Kevin MacLeod, Space Station, and the Public Domain. We'll see you guys next week for more programming here. Stay tuned for Ryan Gable and the weekend programming. You guys have a good night.
Just how they grow and why we see them everywhere. Milk bars, is it the dairies or the fairies who decide to put them there? Milk bars, I used to think it was a drink for little kids of 2 or 3. Milk bars, but nowadays the only way's the daily way for you.